After all, intelligence advantage, no matter the era, was always a critical element in a war. Hallmaster, our rocket fuel reserves are too large. The rocket simply can't reach above the 4th layer heaven. If we use the rocket fuel for modifications, there's a lot of design space left. Perhaps we could make the rocket reach the 5th layer heaven. Zhu Zhangxi began, offering his suggestion. Zhu Zhangxi spoke up, presenting his proposal. There's no need. Keep optimizing the design of this rocket and bring the costs down. In time, there will be production tasks assigned to you all, Su Jie responded, patting Zhu Zhangxi's shoulder. The rockets of Tianyuan World had no use in warfare for now, so they would be utilized on Blue Star, which was Su Jie's original plan. The rockets manufactured by Puppet Hall had performance that exceeded Blue Star's requirements easily, as it lacked the formidable 33 heavens. Turning his gaze away from the sky, Su Jie clapped his hands towards the others and said, "All right, today's test was very successful. Everyone is awarded 50 spirit stones. Long live the Hall Master." Upon hearing this, the Puppet Hall disciples present burst into smiles. For an average outer disciple, a monthly income was only about 10 or so spirit stones, so Su Jie was being quite generous. Leaving the experimental site, Su Jie then took Zhu Zhangxi to a lake within the territory of Ghost Ridge Palace. This lake had been artificially widened and deepened, and within the dock by the lake, just the length of the dock measured up to 600 meters. Within the dock lay a massive steel beast. This was a steel warship over 400 meters long. More precisely, it was a biomechanical warship also developed by Su Jie through Puppet Hall, specifically for naval battles on Blue Star, and it was named Lanhai No. 1. Its shell and skeleton were made from a special metal blend mixed with deep-sea luminous stone. Once sunlight refracted off of it, one's whole vision was filled with a shimmering blue glow, much like a vast blue ocean. As an essential future strategic force of Jekka Group dominating the ocean, Su Jie spared no expense in its construction, utilizing a plethora of resources, leading to its costly build, and now it was finally time for the hull's completion. As Su Jie descended from the sky and stepped onto the deck of the steel behemoth, a unique sensation surged through his heart. The deck was actually a biomimetic one. "Step back, everyone," Su Jie instructed. Su Jie had Zhu Zhangxi lead the Puppet Hall disciples to retreat, and then he took out a heavy bomb from his storage bag and directly tossed it onto the deck. Bang! The deck shook violently, but as the shockwave and explosive energy entered the deck, it diminished layer by layer, only blasting open a hole less than 2 meters wide. A minor scratch for the massive Lanhai No. 1. At the sight of the explosion, dark red blood spurted out, and its interior was not made of steel but layer upon layer of meat tumors. Even the surface of the deck used material similar to insect shells. The thickness of the deck was unknown, but this bomb did not completely penetrate the deck, having its power absorbed by the underlying meat tumors. After the attack, the biomimetic deck seemed to come to life vigorously, with meat tumors continuously wriggling to heal and quickly filling the gap caused by the explosion. Where shrapnel from the explosion had penetrated, as the meat tumors moved, they were gradually expelled. Lanhai No. 1's defenses were strong, capable of self-repairing and adapting to various extreme conditions. Click, click, around the warship, as lines resembling blood vessels bulged. The surface's biomimetic armor quickly expanded, forming a thick protective layer, as if it were donning armor. At the same time, several openings split on the deck, resembling the gaping mouths of monsters. Inside shimmered rows of glowing blue halos that slowly expanded and contracted. This was a special kind of energy spore, derived from the capabilities of a particular poisonous insect. Once activated, these energy spores would release a powerful attack. On the sides of the warship, something fuzzy, resembling fungal filaments, grew. This was actually a layer of fine sensory villi, like pores on the skin, capable of acutely capturing all surrounding movements. Once an incoming attack was detected, they would intercept or counter it. Su Jie looked around and then walked into the interior of Lanhai No. 1. Here, the battleship was brimming with lifelike vitality. Countless tentacles and veins shuttled through the hull, acting as the lifelines of the battleship, linking every system and transmitting materials between chambers. maintaining the operation of the battleship. Everywhere he looked, there was a perfect fusion of machinery and flesh, making the entire battleship seem as if it had been endowed with a unique form of life. Good, good, good.
Suja nodded in satisfaction.
Now that the Lanhai No. 1 was constructed, once it was sent back to Blue Star for outfitting and installation of various weapons and subsystems, it would become the most important oceanic strategic deterrence force of the JECA group. Hall Master, there's just one more week, and Lanhai No. 1 will be completely built. Zhu Zhangxi came over and said, also, as per your orders, Lanhai No. 2 and No. 3 have also begun to be launched. That's good. With a smile growing warmer, Su Jie knew that with Lanhai No. 1, the future maritime safety was assured. After returning to the puppet hall with his team, Su Jie summoned Chen Yun and pointed to the massive flying magical boat. He said to both Chen Yun and Zhu Zhangxi, "This flying magical boat, spare no effort to repair it as soon as possible. Hall Master, our capabilities at the puppet hall aren't perfect yet, and progressively repairing would be more cost-effective," Chen Yun advised. The flying magical boat had been captured by Ghost Ridge Palace and turned over to the puppet hall. The hall never ceased its repair efforts, although the progress was slow. They focused more on studying the technology of the flying magical boat. After all, repairing it was too expensive, and relying solely on funds allocated by the puppet hall itself, without Su Jie being willing to spend money, one could imagine the slow progress. The sect will specifically allocate funds for repairs, so don't worry about money. Use your intelligence and wit, and once repaired, this flying magical boat will become our Ghost Ridge Palace flagship, for campaigns both in the north and south, letting the outside world witness the strength of our Ghost Ridge Palace. Su Jie gestured grandly. This was one of the supports he obtained from the sect. In the foreseeable future, it was likely they would clash with Guanchao Pavilion again. At that time, leaving the Ghost Ridge Palace headquarters without the protection of the Mountain Gate's Great Formation and Insect Valley's threats, this treasure, the flying magical boat, with its formidable firepower and robust protection, would become the mobile base for the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples going out to battle, a flying military fortress. Guanchao Pavilion's status as the leader of the righteous sect was not unrelated to their possession of multiple flying magical boats. Such a valuable treasure was not something that sects with deep pockets could afford to play with or sustain. If it were not for Su Jie's insistence and the looming threat of future wars, Zhang Junwei would have been reluctant to pony up this amount of money. Really, that's great. Zhu Zhangxi's lips quivered with excitement upon hearing this. Although the repaired flying magical boat was to be commanded by Ghost Ridge Palace, it would definitely be operated by their Puppet Hall disciples, essentially granting Puppet Hall possession of this great treasure. Hall Master, could it be? There's another war coming. Unlike the blindly excited Zhu Zhangxi, Chen Yun thought deeper. From Su Jie's words, she sensed something amiss. With the financial resources of Ghost Ridge Palace, sustaining a flying magical boat was feasible. But without a large-scale war, the flying magical boat would only serve as a decorative piece at the sect. Ghost Ridge Palace had been reluctant to spend money before and merely left the flying magical boat to the Puppet Hall for research. This was part of the reason. Now, their sudden generosity was cause for concern. Don't worry, we are not the main characters this time. And even if there is a war, we will surely be the victorious side. Su Jie said calmly, after giving the instructions to repair the flying magical boat. Su Jie once again started his inspection at the Puppet Hall. A few days later, having arranged the internal affairs of Ghost Ridge Palace, Su Jie retired to his residence, and through the mysterious ancient mirror in his sea of consciousness, he opened the portal back to Blue Star. The war between Guanchao Pavilion and Heavenly Soul Sect was still far off, with both sides still preparing. There was no imminent conflict. Su Jie planned to return to Blue Star first to greatly enhance his own strength. Blue Star, Chan Country, Monde City. On Huifeng Avenue, a man and a woman were strolling down the street, both wearing masks and large sunglasses, hiding their true faces. How about this one? Does it look good? In the clothing store, Lu Yingying was wearing a dress, her graceful figure accentuated, her slender waist easily encircled by an arm, her smile charming. You look beautiful in anything. Su Jie shrugged his shoulders, sitting on the side somewhat helplessly. Even though he had attained the position of second in command at the Jekka Group, with great power and status, Lu Yingying was still like most women, having a keen interest in shopping. There they were, just back from Tianyuan World, and Su Jie, having some free time, was pulled into shopping by Lu Yingying. What? That's such a brush-off.
Lu Yingying gave suye aglare.
If you like them, just buy them all. No need. I just enjoy the process. Lu Yingying huffed lightly. Even though she could buy up a whole street's worth of clothes, she would never do so. Instead, she enjoyed the process of shopping with Su Jie more than the purchases themselves. At her level of material comfort, she was lacking nothing, but the spiritual pleasure of being with Su Jie was now her greatest pursuit. Su Jie often disappeared for long periods, so Lu Yingying especially treasured the opportunities they had together, especially those that were purely for fun and relaxation, not work-related. 20 minutes later, Lu Yingying, carrying several bags of purchased clothes and arm-in-arm with Su Jie, left the clothing store contentedly. At that moment, a plainclothes bodyguard approached Su Jie and whispered, "Boss, the flies have been dealt with." "Okay, I know. Let's get in the car and head back." Su Jie nodded, his divine sense sweeping over the area. A few genetic warriors, acting as his security detail, were in a nearby high-rise building, capturing several spies in one fell swoop. Around Su Jie, there was always a team of genetic warriors responsible for his security, including some specialized in sensory powers. This elite security team, dedicated to Su Jie, had uncovered over 100 plots against him to date, with remarkable achievements. Such security was common among the high ranks of the Jekka Group, though none as tight as that around Su Jie himself. Naturally, for Su Jie, even without any security, it was unlikely anyone could successfully assassinate him unless the assassination involved the use of a hydrogen bomb. An armored car drove up, and Lu Yingying followed Su Jie into the back seat, pursing her lips and saying, "I wonder which country it's from this time. It's been several batches now. Tisk, it's been restless again lately, eh? Isn't it all because of the Kra Isthmus Canal affair? Ever since we declared the intention to dig the Kra Canal, what was a stable situation has once again become a global focus." Lu Yingying spoke up, recalling that a week ago, the Jekka Group, under its official capacity, announced to the external world its collaboration with the Siam government to excavate the Kra Isthmus Canal. The so-called Kra Isthmus Canal, located within a narrow strip between Siam Chumpon Province and Ranong Province, extends from Southeast Asia in the north to the Malay Archipelago in the south, with about 400 kilometers of the isthmus belonging to Siam territory. At its narrowest, it's just over 50 kilometers, widening to about 190 kilometers, with the highest elevation at 75 meters above sea level. As announced by Jekka Group's statement, the planned canal, estimated to be 102 kilometers in length, would feature a dual-channel waterway, 700 meters wide, with a depth of 55 meters. The announcement shook the globe, especially the Southeast Asia region, like a bombshell. For instance, once this canal cutting through southern Siam is completed, it will link the Andaman Sea and Siam Bay, allowing ships to enter the Pacific Ocean without having to navigate through the Malacca Strait and detour around Temasek and Johor, thereby reducing the travel distance by at least 1,300 kilometers. For a 100,000-ton tanker, this could save up to $400,000 to $500,000 in costs, not to mention the time saved, greatly increasing the speed of cargo turnover. Temasek hasn't made a fuss, right?
Su Jie spoke indirectly.
The Malacca Strait was the lifeline of Temasek. Losing this global maritime choke point would bring a significant downfall in both economic income and international status. The Malacca Strait handles 25% of the global crude oil and refined oil transport, and 30% of global maritime trade also passes through the strait, representing a hugely significant economic interest. The revenue from tolls, taxes, and logistics services that Temasek gains from this shipping lane has made it enormously wealthy, turning it into a global logistics, finance, and shipping hub overnight. As such, when Jekka Group commenced construction on the Kra Isthmus, Temasek naturally became extremely envious and tried desperately to block it. More than making a fuss, they all but went to war with us, not only protesting publicly but also accusing us in the United Nations Security Council, requesting the intervention of the International Tribunal to prevent us from building the Kra Canal, exerting an all-out effort. Liu Yingying chuckled lightly, her words tinged with disdain. For Jekka Group, Temasek was just a small country, and small countries have no power. But apart from Temasek, Johor and Java and even India openly opposed our canal. Currently, the United Nations Security Council, led by Beautiful Country and its bunch of lackeys, especially the so-called Thousand Islands Strategic Alliance, are grossly slandering our efforts to build the Kra Canal, claiming that by doing so, we intend to choke the global maritime economic route and are seriously endangering global peace. Liu Yingying, in the heat of the moment, couldn't help herself and added, Beautiful Country really has some nerve, keeping troops in Temasek and controlling other global maritime routes, with military bases near the Panama Canal, Suez Canal, and Gibraltar Strait. Now, they turn around and accuse us of threatening global peace. Su Jie smiled and said, You're not the first one to encounter the double standards of the Beautiful Country. They have always been like this. They're used to opposing me. But now that even India is joining the fray, it seems that this canal really does stir up huge interests, making them all restless. The more they oppose, the more we must build. We call the shots in Siam now, and all they can do is vent at the United Nations Security Council. Any opposing proposal they make is just a piece of waste paper if we don't sign it. Liu Yingying nodded. In the past, Siam wanted to build the Kra Isthmus Canal, but on one hand, they truly didn't have the money. Constructing a canal requires an investment of at least tens of billions of US dollars. On the other hand, they couldn't withstand external pressure. Because such international waterways are strategic, small countries have difficulty maintaining control if they build one. The most obvious example is Panama, where the Panama Canal built on their land is actually controlled by the Beautiful Country. However, after the Jekka Group became the hegemon of Southeast Asia, it could ignore these pressures. The things Siam didn't dare do, the Jekka Group didn't care about at all. Jekka Group had plenty of financial resources, and in terms of military force, they could make the Southeast Asian countries shiver. Su Jie was very satisfied with Liu Yingying's remarks. She was increasingly showing a strong woman's temperament. He smiled and said, When the canal is pierced through, I'll let Xiao Qian, the underground machinery, complete it. You arrange for manpower to speed up the infrastructure construction in the canal's ports, roads, railways, service stations, logistics, and so on. The thousand-hand centipede lurking within his sleeves perked up when it heard Su Jie calling for it, blinking its eyes. It didn't know yet that it had been assigned to tough work. Su Jie was simply taking advantage of the fact that the thousand-hand centipede wouldn't ask for a salary, embezzled the entire few $100 billion allocated for the canal excavation. I'll give Xiao Qian an extra meal later on. Thinking to himself, Su Jie knew that the control of the Malacca Strait still resided with the Beautiful Country, and that was intolerable for Jekka Group, the hegemon of Southeast Asia. If it came to war with the Beautiful Country's navy, just one blockade at the Malacca Strait would prevent the Jekka Group's navy from passing through, and logistical adjustments would be impossible. For instance, Lanhai No. 1, which Su Jie planned to equip Jekka Group's navy with, if deployed in the Chan country's Andaman Sea, couldn't pass through the Malacca Strait to enter Siam Bay, limiting its influence over Annan, Siam, and other countries, and facing significant threats at sea. Conversely, if Lanhai No. 1 was deployed in Siam Bay, it wouldn't be able to affect the Andaman Sea, which would be a severe lack of sea deterrence power for the Chan country, the Jekka Group's headquarters. It's not like they could circumvent the Malacca Strait by taking a more southerly route through the Indian Ocean. That was a complete fantasy. The distance and the expedition were too long, and the time spent would be too much, which was utterly impractical. If they wanted to unite the naval forces around Southeast Asia, the Malacca Strait was like a bone stuck in the throat for the Jekka Group, making the construction of the Kra Isthmus Canal imperative. As they conversed, the car had already arrived at the Jekka Group headquarters building. Su Jie got out with Liu Yingying and walked into a meeting room. A group of people who had been waiting there represented Siam, Annan, Lansong, and Jinla. There's something I need all of you to accomplish next. As Su Jie took the main seat, his gaze swept around the room, and he began. Due to various reasons, Jekka Group needs a large quantity of human blood. Thus, those of you here, inform the governments behind you to carry out a blood donation campaign. This is a demand from Jekka Group. After speaking, Lu Yingying, acting as Su Jie's secretary, took out a stack of documents clearly outlining the related plan. When the representatives of these countries saw the first line of the document, a flicker of shock passed through their eyes. Mandatory blood donation for every adult, at least twice a year, Mr. Su? Isn't this blood donation a bit too radical? The Yan'an representative couldn't help but speak up when he saw this demand. Forced national blood donation was unprecedented anywhere in the world. The other countries' representatives also wore expressions of surprise. They speculated that Su Jie's demands might be related to super soldiers. Because the super soldiers of the Jekka Group had to undergo blood transfusions to maintain bodily functions after taking strengthening pills, this was no longer a secret worldwide. Some strengthening pills had leaked due to various factors, and many countries conducted experiments and attempted replication. Although the replication wasn't successful, they had come to understand the effects and side effects of the strengthening pill. Su Jie waved his hand and said, "Finish reading before you comment." The representatives from the countries continued to look over the document, but soon they discovered that Jekka Group wasn't planning to freeload the blood. Blood donation tax credits, cash rewards, education for children, employment and retirement benefits. With every line they read, the faces of the representatives from the various countries in attendance became increasingly uneasy, because the document clearly stated that as long as the citizens donated blood, they could choose one of two direct ways to benefit. One was tax exemption according to the number of times and the amount of blood you donated. A portion of the taxes you were supposed to pay would be waived. The other was simply brute cash rewards, with the most straightforward incentive being offered. More blood donated naturally meant more money. If you were wealthy or from a well-off family, most would choose the former tax exemption, as it could yield greater benefits. The latter was the choice of the majority of people. Jekka Group would set a clear price for the blood, paying exactly as much per milliliter as it was worth. Of course, to avoid various nefarious forces from coercing blood sales, a series of regulations was implemented, such as requiring the person themselves to be present at the blood donation. Furthermore, based on the cumulative amount of blood donated, citizens would be conferred with titles such as Blood Donation Model, Blood Donation Angel, Blood Donation Hero, etc. Those holding a blood donation certificate could enjoy preferential treatment in employment, school admissions, tax reduction on house purchases, car purchase benefits, loans, civil service exams, and many other aspects. When they had finished reading, the representatives from the various countries had the same thought simultaneously. Was Jekka Group so flush with cash it had nowhere to spend it? They couldn't fathom why Su Jie would propose such an outrageous demand. The combined population of their few countries was over 200 million. Even when setting aside minors and the elderly, sick, and disabled, the number of people eligible to donate blood was still staggeringly large. This presented a colossal financial burden on the governments. Assuming only 100 million people met the blood donation requirements, based on the blood donation incentive scale that Su Jie had set up, the annual cost of the blood donation rewards and the operating maintenance expenses could add up to $1 trillion. What do you think? Can you do it? Su Jie tapped on the table, looking intently at the representatives from the various countries. I want to ask, is this blood donation subsidy provided by the Jekka Group? The Yan'an representative tentatively inquired, as they couldn't afford it if the subsidy came from their own country. The blood we, the Jekka Group, need will naturally be paid for by us, Jekka Group. However, as for the money, well, it can be deducted from your war indemnities. Su Jie, in order to ensure their utmost effort, didn't oppress them too harshly. He wanted to avoid them obeying superficially while opposing him in secret. After all, the Manchester Treaty indemnity was set in stone. This, we Siam, agree. Upon hearing Su Jie's words, the representatives from the countries exhaled in relief. The first to accede was Siam, Jekka Group's #1 lapdog. Siam had already been subdued by Jekka Group and took the lead in this matter without hesitation. And you? Su Jie then turned his gaze to the others. We and Nan are willing. We Lansong are willing. We, Zhenla, are willing. Representatives from country after country nodded in agreement, consenting to implement the blood donation plan issued by the Jekka Group. After all, they only needed to provide manpower. Jekka Group had already taken on the financial burden, so they had no cause for concern. Very well, you can go back now. Soon our Jekka Group will send a supervisory team to organize the blood donation plan. Su Jie dismissed the representatives from the various countries, watching their retreating figures with a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth. They thought Jekka Group was spending money for no good reason, not realizing that this blood was critical to Su Jie's cultivation of the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon technique. Whether this cultivation technique could be successful depended on massive amounts of blood. Siam, home to the Kra Isthmus Canal, offered distant views of the tumultuous sea waves and the narrow valley plains below. A convoy of vehicles slowly entered and came to a halt, with Wang Lin, the chairman of Wanda Group from Hua Country, stepping down from the car. By then, the area had already amassed numerous construction machines and workers. Accompanied by the Wanda Group staff, Wang Lin was here because his company had invested in logistics, hotels, and other infrastructure projects related to the Kra Isthmus Canal. It was also his first visit to the site. However, Wang Lin's timing was unfortunate, as shortly after they disembarked, they saw some local residents nearby holding banners and protesting. We refuse the excavation of the canal, hand back our land. This is our homeland. Those who harm the environment are criminals, and my God will not forgive you. Why so little compensation? I don't agree. The compensation must be tripled, or else I refuse to move. Through an accompanying translator, Wang Lin understood the locals' protests. Mr. Wang, nice to meet you. Welcome to your investment inspection of the Kra Isthmus Canal. I am Ba Peng, the chief engineer and head of the Jekka Group at the Kra Isthmus Canal. At that moment, personnel from the Jekka Group who had come to greet Wang Lin approached. Ba Peng was from Siam and was the most renowned expert on bridge and road engineering in the country. In the past, Siam had also intended to build a canal through the Kra Isthmus, and Ba Peng was the designated leader of the project, having extensively researched the Kra Isthmus Canal. However, due to national power and external pressures, among other reasons, the project had been indefinitely postponed. Initially, Ba Peng never expected to see the canal completed in his lifetime until Jekka Group entered the picture. Unlike Siam's passive stance, Jekka Group's approach was assertive. The clamor from the outside world couldn't disrupt their canal construction plans, giving Ba Peng hope for its successful realization. Hello. Wang Lin, not wanting to seem negligent, quickly extended his hand to shake with Ba Peng. Mr. Ba Peng, these... Wang Lin exchanged pleasantries and gestured towards the banner-wielding crowds. Has the land not been settled yet? If we start construction, it won't cause an uproar, will it? Wang Lin was somewhat anxious because, due to the previous success of the wedding dress movie produced by Jekka Group, his Wanda Group had gained the opportunity to invest in infrastructure projects in Southeast Asia and had been listed among Jekka Group's preferred collaborators. The Kra Isthmus Canal was undoubtedly a focal project among these. Though Wanda didn't own any shares of the canal itself, participating in the logistics, hotels, greening, and roads along the canal had proven highly profitable. Moreover, it served as a showcase of their capabilities within Southeast Asia. When others saw that even the significant project like the Kra Isthmus Canal had Wanda's involvement, they would surely regard Wanda Group's capabilities in a new light, facilitating business deals and gaining market share in Southeast Asia. You worry too much, Mr. Wang. Jekka Group has already purchased the canal and the surrounding lands, compensating the locals adequately. These protesters are merely a few greedy individuals, coupled with foreign influences stirring up trouble.
Ba Peng spoke calmly.
Jekka Group wasn't short on money. They had compensated sufficiently for the land acquisitions, removing several corrupt Siamese officials in the process. Corruption was rampant in Siam, with instances where airport and highway constructions remained incomplete after 10 years, with 80% of the funds unaccounted for being a common occurrence. Even with JECA Group paying generously, human greed is insatiable. People always want more. Warning: all outsiders must immediately leave the canal area or be treated as engaging in an attack. We hold the right to defend ourselves without limitations. Suddenly, a large group of soldiers appeared on the scene, driving away the protesters. In the Kra Isthmus Canal area, JECA Group had stationed 2 divisions, with robust military strength easily summoning troops. As the dark muzzles of guns were pointed at them, the faces of the protesting locals turned pale. Confronted with JECA Group's readiness to enforce the law, gun laws, and reasoning ballistics, everyone rapidly turned and fled. In Siam, people had witnessed JECA Group's decisive actions before. Seeing their seriousness now, no one dared to stick around. "That settles the matter, Mr. Wang, please after you," Ba Peng said, addressing a stunned Wang Lin. Is that it?" Wang Lin pointed to the scene, questioning the aggressive military approach. "That's how we handle things. If it were the police, these troublesome folks wouldn't be scared." Ba Peng nodded, aware that this area of southern Siam had always had a separatist streak, with locals desiring to establish their own country. Previously, during JECA Group's conflict with Siam, they had already dealt with these separatists here. Mere police presence couldn't subdue them. Speechless, Wang Lin reflected on JECA Group's wartime growth and realized their approach was quite consistent with their history. Entering the construction site, intense work was underway everywhere. Various construction machinery flattened the ground, cleared the trees, and poured concrete, the constant roaring of machines filling the air with a bustling atmosphere. Wearing a safety helmet, Wang Lin's gaze reached the planned excavation area of the canal. "What is this?" Wang Lin's eyes widened as he saw the planned canal area, now a vast expanse of collapsed earth and rock, forming a massive canyon with a length of several kilometers and a width of a few hundred meters. And in the gorge, gigantic spider mechas, modified from the spider main battle mechas into engineering machines, were deeply drilling and anchoring themselves into the rocky terrain with their long spider legs. They were excavating the earth, and when encountering massive rocks, they would strike continuously with their spider legs and shatter them with the installed heavy-duty drills and hammers. In the middle part of the spider mecha, where machine guns used to be mounted, hydraulic mechanical arms had been installed instead. 2 huge buckets scooped up large swathes of soil and rocks into the massive bin on their backs, and then these materials were conveyed to the surface via a gigantic conveyor belt. To handle the tremendous volume of transport, even the conveyor belt had been modified so that tons of soil and rocks could be easily transported from the gorge to the ground dozens of meters above, to be then carried away by various excavators and trucks. Using spider mechas for civil engineering works? That's quite ostentatious. Wang Lin felt as if his eyes had been opened. The spider main battle mechas were hailed as the new kings of ground combat. A single one could easily overturn dozens of armored vehicles. The fact that they were repurposed for digging and dredging was something Wang Lin had not even dared to imagine. Ba Peng shrugged and said, "But it's efficient, isn't it? Too efficient. Such a lengthy and deep gorge has been excavated in such a short time. It's truly breathtaking." Wang Lin marveled, feeling that he had gained some valuable insights today. Ba Peng remained silent at the side. In fact, the gorge had not been dug by the spider mechas, but by JECA Group's secret tunneling machines, and they were only there to do the final blasting to collapse the already hollowed-out interior of the gorge. Ba Peng was very curious about the mysterious tunneling machine and the principle behind its high-efficiency digging capabilities, which far exceeded the efficiency of ordinary shield machines. But, unfortunately, this was not something within his authorization to know. Initially, according to Siam's plans, the construction of the Kra Isthmus Canal was expected to take 8 to 10 years. But our JECA Group doesn't need that long. According to our plans, we could complete the canal in just a year and a half. As Ba Peng said this, he couldn't help but feel very proud. The design for the Kra Isthmus Canal by Siam in the past was only 400 meters wide and 25 meters deep. However, JECA Group's plan was even bolder, with the canal's width reaching 700 meters and a depth of 55 meters. Without the mysterious underground tunneling machine, such a huge volume of work would be staggering. Mr. Ba Peng, I admire your company's strength and look forward to our pleasant cooperation. Wang Lin had been somewhat worried that the canal project might fail, but now, seeing the strength of JECA Group, he finally felt at ease and was full of expectations for the future cooperation. Once the canal was operational, it would be a highly lucrative investment for the Wanda Group. Pleasure to cooperate, Ba Peng replied with a smile, when suddenly a loud bang came from the coast, startling everyone present. What's going on? Ba Peng's brow furrowed, and his aide took a call and whispered something into Ba Peng's ear. As he listened, Ba Peng's expression turned unsightly, and he eventually became furious. Bullshit to mistake the dock? Do they think I'm an idiot? This is clearly done on purpose. Mr. Ba Peng, what's happened? Wang Lin had a bad feeling. A Temasek cargo ship collided with our temporary dock. They claim the ship is severely damaged, taking on water, and needs emergency repairs, refusing to move. Ba Peng's face showed his displeasure. In order to build the Kra Isthmus Canal, the JECA Group had found a suitable location on the coast and constructed a dock where ships could dock to transport various materials such as cement, steel, gasoline, diesel, parts, food, and more, conveniently delivered directly to the canal worksite via rail. Now, this dock was being blocked by a Temasek cargo ship, undoubtedly disrupting the transfer operations. Temasek is getting desperate. Upon hearing this, Wang Lin also understood the situation. The Temasek-controlled Malacca Strait was threatened. Once the Kra Isthmus Canal was completed, the number of ships passing through the Malacca Strait would be reduced by more than half. The cargo ship's collision with the temporary dock was an evident attempt by Temasek to hinder JECA Group's construction work on the Kra Isthmus Canal. These bastards, daring to cause trouble for us. Report the situation to headquarters immediately and have the military come with me. Ba Peng gritted his teeth, furious. As a considerable military force assembled, the Spider main battle mechas that had been working in the underground tunnel changed out their standard mechanical arms for various weapon systems and aggressively headed towards the dock. By the time Ba Peng and his team arrived at the dock area, they saw a huge cargo ship with its bow collided against the dock. The ship was damaged but nowhere close to sinking, yet the other party remained still, blocking the normal docking of other ships. On the deck's railing, a group of Temasek sailors could be seen arguing with JECA Group workers below. Mr. Ba Peng, these Temasek sailors refused to disembark. The person in charge of the dock hurried over to report the situation. Refused to disembark? We call the shots here. Take everyone into custody. If anyone resists, shoot them. Ba Peng, red with anger, picked up the walkie-talkie to communicate with the military officers of the JECA Group. Soon after, the sound of helicopters whirring overhead could be heard, and as a helicopter hovered above the cargo ship, several genetic warriors leapt down and stormed into the vessel. Accompanied by several gunshots, soon a group of Temasek crew members trembled as they were escorted down by the genetic warriors. Wang Lin, who was nearby, witnessed this scene and could see the crimson bloodstains that had not yet dried on the biological armor of the genetic warriors. Clearly, someone had resisted to the end and then met a grisly death at the hands of the genetic warriors. Seeing the cold gaze of the genetic warriors, Wang Lin subconsciously shrank his neck, gaining a deeper impression of the JECA Group's iron-fisted style. Not only were the higher-ups of the JECA Group hard-handed, but the middle and lower ranks were the same. Most powers, when faced with situations that could easily lead to national disputes, would choose to pass the buck and use various channels to mediate. Ba Peng kicked one of the Temasek crew members hard and ordered loudly, "Take these people back to the Chan Country Jail. I want them to regret what they have done. Also, move this cargo ship away with a tugboat immediately and clear out the dock." As the cargo ship was towed away, the incident quickly fermented. The JECA Group's construction of the Kra Isthmus Canal was already a global focal point. Now, with the collision of the cargo ship and the death of crew members, the incident quickly climbed to the top of news headlines, especially in the Western media, which spared no effort in publicizing and hyping the domineering actions of the Jekka Group. Jekka Group illegally kills and detains Temasek crew members, looking to suppress maritime freight. A warning to every sailor. Temasek government issues a statement condemning the violent acts of the Jekka Group, calling on them to stop, and demanding compensation for the deceased crew members. Families of the deceased plead, asking the Jekka Group to pay life for life. Latest intelligence, Jekka Group is mobilizing naval forces from Chan Country, Siam, and Nan, Lansong, Junla, gathering them in Siam Bay. As the news broke, the situation in Southeast Asia heated up instantly. As the news was being reported, the Jekka Group had already begun deploying their troops. In Songkhla Province, located at the southern tip of Siam, the Jekka Group amassed a large military force. The first to be deployed were the 5th Army Group. The 5th Army Group consisted of the 79th, 80th, and 81st Infantry Divisions, the 4th Mountain Division, the 5th Mountain Division, along with 3 incorporated armored brigades and 4 combat branch brigades, including the Air Assault Brigade, Artillery Brigade, Service Support Brigade, and Engineer Chemical Defense Brigade. The total strength of the 5th Army Group reached 100,000 troops, units that had participated in the Civil War in Chan Country and the Great Battles in Southeast Asia. Especially when the Spider main battle mecha of the Jekka Group's 1st Mecha Combat Brigade was transported to Siam Songkha Prefecture by train. A total of 134 Spider main battle mechas being deployed made not only Temasek but also Johor extremely anxious. Johor and Temasek are both on the Malay Peninsula, with Johor bordering Siam while Temasek is located behind Johor. Therefore, if the Jekka Group were to attack Temasek, they would have to breach Johor first in order to invade Temasek territory. Seeing the Spider main battle mechas lining up along the border, Johor was drenched in sweat, under immense pressure, and hastily mobilized the nation's military forces. Even so, they weren't very confident that they could withstand the tide of Jekka Group's mechas. The threat posed by the Spider main battle mechas was simply too great compared to their outdated tanks and armored vehicles. Coupled with the Jekka Group's mobilization of naval forces from 5 Southeast Asian countries and Jekka's own powerful air force, they exerted overwhelming pressure on Johor. Thus, the day after the 1st Mecha Combat Brigade was deployed to the front lines and announced to be conducting military exercises, Johor hastily capitulated to the Jekka Group, publicly declaring that it would not be involved in the conflict between Temasek and the Jekka Group. The Prime Minister also rushed to Chan Country to meet with Jekka Group executives to explain. If the Jekka Group wished to go to Temasek, Johor would be willing to lend a passage, allowing Jekka Group's forces to proceed unimpeded on their way to Temasek, not obstructing them in the slightest, outright betraying their ally in the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance. Temasek, inside the Congress building. President Min Bachin, with a stern face, looked at the members below and gritted his teeth. "Speak. All of you speak. What exactly is going on at the Kra Isthmus Canal? Who can give me an answer?" The seated members below were all silent, as if their minds were drifting far away, with none responding. "No one is speaking, eh? The deeds you've done yourselves, do I need to personally call you out? Chui Yenlin, I know it's your doing, now you dare not admit it." Min Bachin's gaze turned towards a middle-aged man, who was Chui Yenlin, both the Minister of State and National Security Coordinator, and a representative of Temasek's pro-beautiful country faction. "Your Excellency, President, what we did was for the good of Temasek. If we allow the Jekka Group to break through the Kra Isthmus Canal, the number of ships passing through the Malacca Strait would inevitably decrease. What would we use to feed our citizens then?" Facing accusations and pressure, Chui Yenlin snorted coldly and spoke righteously. "It's not just me opposing. Look at our people of Temasek. Who would want to see the Kra Isthmus Canal completed? We all rely on the Malacca Strait for our livelihood. If we don't do something, we will starve to death." Other members below nodded their heads. Even those who were neutral understood the importance of the Malacca Strait to Temasek. Once the Kra Isthmus Canal was completed, Temasek would be in deep trouble. "That does not justify your irresponsible actions. We are but a small nation. Do you understand that? By provoking the Jekka Group, what do you think it will lead to? Do you think Temasek can afford it?" Min Bachin slammed the table, his gaze fierce. Although Temasek was an important transshipment hub connecting Asian to European maritime transport, and had a GDP exceeding $400 billion, it was indeed a very small country. Because its population was merely over 7 million and the total area was 735 square kilometers, consisting of Temasek Island and 63 nearby smaller islands, not even as large as many countries' single counties. Thus, although Temasek's economy ranked among the top globally, it was confined by factors such as land area, population, and resources, and was essentially a small country. If it wasn't for controlling the Malacca Strait, this vital waterway, such a small nation like Temasek wouldn't be cared about at all. Between Jekka Group and Beautiful Country, we must make a choice. Jekka Group constructing the Kra Isthmus Canal is like putting their hands directly into our throat. How can we not side with Beautiful Country? Chui Yenlin argued loudly, which had been Temasek's position in the past. Because Temasek was sandwiched between Jawa and Johor, it couldn't even be self-sufficient in freshwater and needed Johor's supply, constantly at risk of being annexed, making it crucial to rely on Beautiful Country using the Malacca Strait as a form of protection fee. Given the vast distance, Beautiful Country had no interest in annexing their territory. As such, half of Temasek's airport was exclusively used by the Beautiful Country Air Force. All ports in Temasek could dock Beautiful Country's navy without prior notice, and Beautiful Country had deployed several warships in Temasek. Even aircraft carriers would dock there for resupply. Through Temasek, Beautiful Country indirectly controlled this maritime traffic hub, sustaining their maritime hegemony, and would relentlessly combat any other country eyeing Temasek, providing security guarantees. By acting so recklessly, now that Jekka Group's massive forces are pressing in, what shall we do? Are we going to declare war on Jekka Group? Can you defeat their air force, navy, or army, or block those spider main battle mechas and genetic warriors? Don't drag our entire nation into the abyss just to please Beautiful Country. Min Bachin spoke harshly. Being a president who rose from the neutral faction, he was keenly aware of the consequences of offending the Jekka Group. We are members of the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance, and we have the protection of Beautiful Country. Jekka Group won't mess around. Chui Yenlin, who organized the cargo ship crashing into the Kra Isthmus Bridge Canal Pier, closely cooperated with the CIA of Beautiful Country in doing so. Being a spokesperson of Beautiful Country's interests in Temasek, he naturally leaned towards supporting Beautiful Country. The Thousand Island Strategic Alliance, Johor is also a member. What have they done? They were the first to capitulate to Jekka Group, actively inviting Jekka Group's troops through their territory, letting them come and strike us. Can they be trusted? Min Bachin raised a newspaper, with news written on it about Johor allowing Jekka Group's army to pass through. Chui Yenlin's face darkened, replied, Johor is just an exception. The Thousand Island Strategic Alliance isn't just composed of them. At least Beautiful Country will still support us. You mentioned Beautiful Country. Just now there was news that, unless absolutely necessary, they asked us to resolve this incident ourselves. Min Bachin glanced coldly at Chui Yenlin, with a touch of sarcasm. Impossible. How could Beautiful Country do such a thing? If Jekka Group really takes action, Beautiful Country would definitely support us without reservation, even deploying aircraft carriers if necessary. Hearing this, Chui Yenlin looked incredulous. That's right. How could Beautiful Country abandon us? How important is the Malacca Strait to Beautiful Country? They could never just ignore it. The president must be mistaken. There's no way the Beautiful Country would tolerate Jekka Group's arrogance. At this moment, legislators below were also speaking out tumultuously, many with agitated expressions. After years of nurturing and education, the majority of officials in Temasek close to the Beautiful Country couldn't believe the news. Have you all forgotten? Not long ago, the Beautiful Country just suffered a setback in Southeast Asia. If Jekka Group comes over, they will definitely take the land route. Do you think the Beautiful Country is willing to fight a battle on land against Jekka Group for us? As if Jekka Group's spider main battle mechas are just for show. Min Bachin spoke the bitter truth, and suddenly the confidence drained from the faces of the assembled legislators. Jekka Group's strength was well known. On land, they had swept across Southeast Asia in a month's time, routing countries like Siam with ease. If a military conflict were to occur on the Malay Peninsula, let alone the deterrent power of the Spider main battle mechas on the ground, the Air Force of Jekka Group could also reinforce them. Those Magic Bird fighters could threaten an aircraft carrier fleet, so it was unsurprising that the beautiful country didn't want to get involved. How is that possible? The CIA even asked us to take action at the Kra Isthmus Pier. Chui Yenlin let something slip unintentionally and upon realization, suddenly understood something. Still don't get it? You've been used by the CIA as a pawn. They're using you to test Jekka Group's stance to see just how much they value the Kra Isthmus Canal. You, including our country, are sacrificial pawns. Our meddling in the Kra Isthmus Canal has offended Jekka Group, leaving us no choice but to cling to the beautiful country. That is the sorrow of a small nation. I had intended to swing between Jekka Group and the beautiful country, but your provocation of Jekka Group has dragged us into danger. As he reached this point, Min Bachin shook his head and said with a sigh, unless Jekka Group wants to fully occupy the Malacca Strait, I estimate the beautiful country won't choose to enter the war, and we have sacrificed too much. Once Jekka Group acts against us, the beautiful country can wave the banner of justice, leading the other Thousand Island Strategic Alliance countries to besiege Jekka Group. But regardless, our Temasek, the sacrificial lamb, would first be reduced to ruins. Is this what you want? Chui Yenlin swayed, eyes bulging and lips quivering, yet no sound came out. Gentlemen, our only option now is to sue for peace. I dare not bet on whether Jekka Group will act against us, but I know that on our own, Temasek cannot withstand an onslaught from Jekka Group. If we don't want to become the sacrificial banner the beautiful country uses to rally other nations to war, we must capitulate to Jekka Group. Min Bachin's expression was grave as he voiced what the legislators in the room did not want to hear. But who could blame them? Temasek was a small country, and a weak country has no diplomacy. Unable to rely on anyone, now Temasek, Johor, Jawa, and the other Thousand Island Strategic Alliance member countries were like a group of little rabbits, with Jekka Group and the beautiful country being the tiger and the lion. Even with the so-called Thousand Island Strategic Alliance in the face of Jekka Group, the tiger, no one dared to truly provoke it. Disobedience to orders from the beautiful country was commonplace. They feared Jekka Group swallowing or bullying them and sought the beautiful country as their patron. But they did not want to provoke Jekka Group of their own volition, bringing disaster upon their nations and making themselves the primary targets of Jekka Group's aggression. Yet, this time, Temasek had played the role of the one to touch the tiger's rear, and should they be attacked and occupied, the world would see the greedy nature of Jekka Group. The beautiful country could then justifiably command the masses, rallying other Thousand Island Strategic Alliance countries to encircle and block Jekka Group. Otherwise, without such a forerunner, everyone else hiding behind them, the situation would hardly change at all. Let's vote now. Those in favor of adopting the appeasement strategy and negotiating with Jekka Group, raise your hands. Min Bachin was the first to raise his hand, and after the legislators below exchanged glances, more than half eventually raised their hands. Although pro-beautiful country, they were still able to discern right from wrong and knew this was the best solution. Min Bachin breathed a sigh of relief, looking at the many opposing legislators who were still discontent and defiant. He couldn't help feeling a deep sense of regret. Alas, we are too far from the beautiful country and too close to Jekka Group. I hope everyone will think thrice before acting in the future. Below, there was only silence. Every legislator's expression was ugly and frustrated. Provoking the beautiful country thousands of miles away might at worst result in economic sanctions, but provoking Jekka Group right at their doorstep could mean Temasek might have to change its name with a careless misstep. The overwhelming wave of mechas could obliterate Temasek in moments, trampled under their iron hooves, with life and death hanging in the balance. Temasek announces that President Min Bachin will visit Chan country today in a friendly manner. This is the first official visit Temasek has made to Chan country since Jekka Group took over Chan country. Temasek invites Jekka Group to participate in a joint naval military exercise. It is reported that Jekka Group has sternly rejected the offer. Regarding the Kra Isthmus Canal Pier collision incident, Min Bachin publicly declared it was a misunderstanding, willing to take the initiative to compensate JECA Group with $1.743 billion for the pier repair costs and lost work time, and announced the opening of domestic industries for investment to JECA Group, including stakes in the industries related to the Malacca Coast piers, welcoming capital investment from JECA Group within Temasek territory. 2 days later, a series of news stories began to emerge. In news photos and videos, Min Bachin, the Temasek president, always appeared nodding and bowing obsequiously when meeting with Su Jie. This greatly disappointed the onlookers who had hoped to witness a head-on clash between the two nations, and perhaps even a resumption of warfare. They had not expected Temasek to submit so swiftly, compromising with the JECA Group even as their livelihoods were threatened. When these news stories broke, Min Bachin, the president of Temasek, was on his knees in front of Su Jie. "Mr. Su, I have taken your teachings to heart, and rest assured, we will behave ourselves from now on and will not cause any more trouble," he said. Min Bachin stood up and bowed to Su Jie before carefully turning with his two confidants and excusing themselves. In order to gain the forgiveness of the JECA Group, he had paid a heavy price, making numerous concessions for their benefit. But in Min Bachin's view, it was all worth it. Although the construction of the Kra Isthmus Canal would severely threaten the interests of the Malacca Strait, this was, after all, just an issue of livelihood. Even if the Kra Isthmus Canal were completed, Temasek, relying on the Malacca Strait, could still earn money, just not as much as before. If he managed to thoroughly offend the JECA Group, it wouldn't be a matter of eating less but a risk of losing everything, including his life. With the close proximity between the two, it would take less than a day for the Spider main battle mecha to reach from Siam Songkha Prefecture to the capital of Temasek, a few hundred kilometers away, to have troops at their doorstep. This fierce tiger was something he couldn't afford to provoke. "He's a smart man," Su Jie remarked casually as he watched Min Bachin's retreating figure. "That's quite a compliment," said Lu Yingying with a smile, as she poured tea for Su Jie. She had often heard Su Jie criticize other nations for being dim-witted pawns of the beautiful country. Knowing how to judge the situation isn't simple. However, it's a pity that he's ultimately from a small country. He can't call the shots, and the beautiful country won't like someone like him, Su Jie said leisurely as he sipped his tea. Yingying blinked and then heard him continue. "One of the confidants who came with him is from the CIA. Ah, then he really is pitiful." Yingying immediately understood. The CIA's infiltration was indeed everywhere. "By the way, shouldn't we do something? What about supporting him as an agent?" "It's useless. He's a smart man that will only swing between the powers. Like a businessman, he favors no one but his interests. He only wants to do business with us, not to be our friend." Su Jie shook his head and said, "The beautiful country wants Temasek to test us, but we can also use this opportunity to continue spreading our influence. If the timing weren't premature, we wouldn't let them off so easily. But all of this, once the Kra Isthmus Canal is completed and the Lanhai No. 1 battleship is ready, the tables will turn." There was a coldness in Su Jie's smile. The main reason for not taking action this time was that the Kra Isthmus Canal was not yet completed, and the Lanhai No. 1, still in the fitting-out phase, had not yet become a formidable force. Southeast Asia consisted of island countries, and future wars would inevitably be naval battles. Su Jie needed to build up force until his own naval power was fully developed, and then it would be time to strike. When Yingying heard the name Lanhai No. 1, she recalled the last time Su Jie took her to see the secret fitting out of the Lanhai No. 1. She couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. It was a super battleship far more terrifying than a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Siam, Manchester. At 10 in the morning, the streets were bustling with people and traffic weaving through. It was hard to tell that just half a year ago, the city had been through a war. Fortunately, due to the restraint shown by the JECA Group, the war did not reach this largest city on the Southeast Asia Peninsula, allowing it to remain prosperous and lively. The biggest change in Manchester since the past was the addition of a JECA Group military encampment not far outside the city, and, due to the withdrawal of a large number of electronic processing plants from Europe and America, the factory buildings were repurposed into insect nests, breeding a large variety of venomous insects and snakes. Many Siamese people joined the Jekka Group's insect breeding venture, and business was booming. Su Changming walked down the main street of Manchester with several of his graduate students. At 47 years old, he was a professor in the Department of International Relations at the School of Social Sciences, at a well-known university in Hua Country, certainly considered to be young and promising. This trip to Siam was for the purpose of researching the Jekka Group. After the Jekka Group forced the Siamese 4 countries to sign the Manchester Treaty, becoming the undisputed hegemon of the Southeast Asia Peninsula, research related to the Jekka Group and how to better interact with this corporate nation had become a major focus for many countries. Economic affairs, international relations, geopolitical matters, mecha hegemony, genetics, and medical fields, every aspect of the Jekka Group had become hot research topics in universities. For the purpose of research, Su Changming had specifically come to Siamese city Manchester for field investigation. The city is filled with many blonde-haired, blue-eyed foreigners, as well as our own people from Hua Country. Lin Lingling, following her mentor Su Changming, noticed that today Manchester was teeming with many foreign tourists, including a substantial number from China. You should have done more homework. Today is the opening day of the Nightmare Park in Manchester, attracting a lot of domestic and international tourists to come and experience it. Su Changming spoke, having seen the news yesterday that the Jekka Group had opened several branches of Nightmare Park all at once in 5 countries on the Southeast Asia Peninsula. This immersive ghost house experience was extremely attractive, especially to the youth. Moreover, there were generous rewards for those who successfully completed the challenge in the Nightmare Park's ghost house, although hardly anyone ever claimed them. Manchester has a Nightmare Park too? Lin Lingling's eyes lit up, somewhat eager to try. During her research trip to Chan Country Monday City, the movie Wedding Dress had been a hit, and she had visited the Nightmare Park in Monday City. However, being skittish yet playful, she was always thoroughly scared by the realistic ghosts and monsters, yet she never tired of it. After you rest, you can go and have fun on your own. I'm too old to handle that kind of excitement, Su Changming said with a smile. As they turned down a street, they unexpectedly came across a square where several buses emblazoned with Red Cross symbols were parked. Doctors and nurses were busy with activities, and a large number of people were queuing up to donate blood. So many blood donation vehicles. Is there a shortage at the hospital? Lin Lingling asked curiously, seeing as many as 50 or 60 donation vehicles occupying a large part of the square, with thousands of people lining up around it, eagerly talking and creating a festive atmosphere. Let's go. Have a look. Everyone split up and investigate. Find out what's going on. Su Changming's interest was piqued, and he led his students over, suggesting they each conduct their own investigations. Hey handsome, what are you all doing here? Why has everyone come to donate blood voluntarily? Lin Lingling harnessed her charming looks and sweet voice to approach a young man and asked him in her passable Siamese. Seeing Lin Lingling, the pretty young lady, the young man immediately perked up and enthusiastically explained, Heh, miss, this is not voluntary blood donation, but mandatory blood donation. Our country has just issued a regulation that every citizen has the obligation to donate blood, with the government requiring a minimum of 2 donations per person per year. This policy is starting in the big cities first and then gradually spreading out. I received a text message and came here specifically to donate. Because of this, my company arranged 3 days of leave for me, as per the regulation that must be implemented. Mandatory blood donation? Really? Lin Lingling was taken aback. It was the first time she'd heard of mandatory blood donation in her life. Siam was about to lead the world by being the first country to require blood donation from all its citizens. Could this be fake? This blood donation policy has just been implemented. You're likely not Siamese people, are you? Here it's already caused a huge stir, not just in Siam, but in the countries across the Southeast Asia Peninsula, all of which must carry out this blood donation policy. Upon hearing this, Lin Lingling immediately understood that this likely wasn't Siam taking the initiative for blood donation. It was probably the Jekka Group pulling strings in the background. The only entity with the power to make every country on the Southeast Asia Peninsula implement such an outrageous policy was the Jekka Group. If I may ask, when the Siamese authorities require you to come and donate blood for free, you just come? Is everyone so enthusiastic, or is there a punishment for not participating? Lin Lingling couldn't wrap her head around when Siamese citizens had become so conscientious. Something like blood donation, which is advocated for every year, only attracts a very small percentage of the population to genuinely donate love, to the point where hospitals often face blood shortages and lack blood reserves. If people claim to be actively donating blood out of the kindness of their hearts, Lin Lingling wouldn't believe it. This isn't like the past voluntary blood donations. There are awards for us for this mandatory blood donation. Participating in voluntary blood donations can reduce taxes, or one can opt for financial rewards. Currently, the state provides a subsidy of $1 per milliliter of blood. Based on the current price of blood, a single donation of 400 milliliters equates to $400. What? Donating blood can reduce taxes and be exchanged for money? Lin Lingling was dumbfounded when she heard this. It turned out there was such a strategy involved. It's more than that. Donating blood can accumulate points. The more points you have, the more conveniences and privileges you can enjoy in many aspects, such as school admissions, civil service exams, loans, buying houses and cars, and discounted fares on airplanes and trains, among others. I didn't come here just for the money, but rather to qualify for a position at JECA Group. I heard that donating blood helps in securing a job at JECA Group, offering priority in hiring. The boy chuckled, scratching his head somewhat embarrassedly. The positions at JECA Group are very well compensated, offering higher salaries compared to those giant tech companies, with full benefits and an easier workload of working 4 days and resting 3, more appealing to the youth than civil service exams. Or rather, for the people of Southeast Asia, the existence of JECA Group itself holds more authority than the country itself. Lin Lingling was shocked. She never imagined that donating blood was tied to so many things. She had only heard about buying homes in school districts to tie into a child's educational resources. JECA Group took it a step further, tying donations to numerous privileges. Was this an intent to engage the whole nation in donating blood? To verify her guess, Lin Lingling continued to query other blood donors. I am here to apply for a position at JECA Group. Everyone is donating blood. If I didn't, I might be disqualified for not donating, and that would be a huge loss for me. I'm planning to take out a loan for business soon, and donating blood reduces the interest significantly, so here I am. My child wants to get into a good school, but his scores are a bit low. Parents donating blood can earn extra points, and I can't let my child fall behind right at the start. Of course, I had to donate. To reduce taxes, I've been pained by how much tax I pay every year. Finally, there's a way to reduce it just by donating my own blood. It's totally worth it. No other reason. I just got a girlfriend recently and spending has surged. Selling blood can make a few $100s, that's almost my monthly salary. Why wouldn't I come? Everyone had their reasons for donating blood, but Lin Lingling noticed that most people were motivated by the immediate cash offer from JECA Group. This was the simplest and most direct temptation. The average salary in Siam is around 2,000 Hua Yuan, and donating blood once is equivalent to earning a month's salary. Most people would come. After all, donating 400 milliliters does not harm the body. When Lin Lingling got to the blood donation van, she saw firsthand that people who completed their donations were directly given cash equivalent to $400, along with free gifts of grains, oils, rice, nutritional supplements, and a raffle ticket. Prizes ranged from various inexpensive handicrafts to electronics like phones and computers, with the grand prize being a car. Each win caused a stir. Even those who didn't win big prizes walked away smiling with loads of grain supplements and cash, looking more spirited than before the donation. By the time Lin Lingling left the plaza, the size of the crowd lining up to donate had multiplied. The scene of people competing to donate blood was indeed unexpected. Lin Lingling couldn't help but remark that JECA Group's incentives were truly effective, making everyone eager to donate blood, as if picking up free money in a scramble. After meeting up with her advisor Su Changming, they shared their research findings. Upon hearing all the graduate students' reports, Su Changming expressed astonishment. JECA Group's actions? I don't know if they are researching some pharmaceutical products or something related to genetics. If the whole of Southeast Asia adopts this method of voluntary blood donation, the volume of collected blood would be vast, with significant investment. In Southeast Asia's population of 250 million, excluding minors and the elderly or infirm, over 150 million are eligible to donate. With each person donating at least twice a year, the outlay is $800. Moreover, there are definitely people who donate more than twice. If you include the salaries of medical personnel, the cost of medical equipment, blood preservation, and various incentives for taxes, loans, buying cars and houses, the associated costs are enormous. The minimum annual expenditure is estimated to be $150 billion, and that's a conservative figure. An investment of $150 billion per year. Lin Lingling and the others, who had no exact understanding before, all inhaled sharply when they heard this number. How exaggerated was this number? It was more than the total annual research investment of the top 10 global technology giants combined, comparable to the annual military spending of Hua country. My goodness, JECA Group is so rich to dare such an investment. No wonder they say JECA Group is mercilessly extravagant. They really make a fortune selling medicine. Forbes magazine had done a summary, didn't it? Tianyuan slimming pills, Tianyuan myopia pill, Tianyuan hair growth liquid. These three products alone brought in $400 to $500 billion for JECA Group annually. To match JECA Group's net profit, you'd need the combined efforts of 5 or 6 companies like Apple. Su Jie is originally from our Hua country. The ability to start from scratch like this is just unbelievable. For a moment, the graduate students were shocked by this huge asset. They were all sociology top students and clearly understood how massive such an expenditure was. JECA Group has money. The money they spend on buying blood circulates in the society, increasing the public wealth and societal happiness. This also invisibly boosts JECA Group's popularity in Southeast Asia. Such audacity is beyond imagination. Su Changming spoke up with great interest, addressing Lin Lingling and the other graduate students. Let's set our research topic on JECA Group to this blood donation campaign and see what kind of impact such a massive blood donation plan will have on the whole Southeast Asia. As the blood collection medical staff got trained and prepared, blood donation vehicles started driving on the streets. Blood donation stations opened their doors for business, fully promoting the blood donation policy. The activity swept through Southeast Asia like a tidal wave. Tax cuts and cash rewards like two big axes split open people's defenses against blood donation. Various preferential treatments from blood donation linked to schooling, civil service exams, cars, housing, loans, etc. fully safeguarded the enthusiasm of the donors. When everyone donated blood, a form of internal competition inadvertently arose, making those who didn't donate a minority. Especially in the poor areas, the blood donation campaign reached its climax, with people queuing up every day in huge numbers, almost overturning the blood donation vehicles. In the backward and impoverished areas of Southeast Asia, people's average monthly salary was even just over $100, and these impoverished populations were significantly large. Now, donating blood once was equivalent to their 3 months' salary. One could imagine how crazy it was. Fear of poverty made them disregard any potential harm from donating blood, wishing they could sell thousands of milliliters at once, fearing such a good opportunity might disappear at any time. Through donating blood, they also indirectly received benefits and welfare from JECA Group, tying them even closer to JECA Group. As blood donations continued, vehicles that had finished collecting blood would take the fresh blood back to the blood banks for preservation, and then transport it to Chan Countryman City, making the traffic of refrigerated blood storage vehicles back and forth relentless. Meanwhile, JECA Group's large-scale blood collection naturally also attracted a lot of controversy. Breaking news: after dominating the hegemony in Southeast Asia, JECA Group finally reveals its evil fangs, brutally enslaving and oppressing the people of Southeast Asia, forcing public blood donations. A vampire state is rising in Southeast Asia. JECA Group is secretly injecting the public with an experimental stage genetic virus through blood donations, turning hundreds of millions of people into guinea pigs for genetic weapon research. Be vigilant of JECA Group's genetic experimentation. This action poses a threat to global security. JECA Group must provide a detailed explanation immediately. Various media from Europe and America demonized JECA Group's blood policy, pairing blood donation videos with sinister filters and linking them to genetic experiments, never missing a chance to slander JECA Group. Fortunately, JECA Group was used to it, not expecting those Western media mouthpieces to speak well of them, continuing as usual. The massive amount of blood collected from donations kept flowing into Chan Country Monde City. Monde City underground goo insect base. Within the profound darkness of the underground depths, Su Jie walked alone along a corridor, whose glass walls on both sides were etched with array formation talismans, flickering with a dim green glow. Behind the walls lay the terrifying insect nest, where variously shaped goo insects occupied the view, some squirming, others fighting, or mating, creating a ghastly scene of slaughter. Crash! As channels opened in the ceiling, hundreds of tons of poison insects and snakes passed through the array, tumbling down into heaps within the insect nest. In an instant, the goo insects' frenzy and killings escalated, with the floor covered in leftover insect carcasses and bodies, and the air was thick with the pungent smell of blood, nauseating to behold. Su Jie was indifferent to this, as the thousand-handed centipede was not here at the moment but was secretly digging canals on the Kra Isthmus. Su Jie had come here for another important matter. He arrived at a newly constructed underground space, the size of 3 standard soccer fields combined, which was a training ground newly planned by Su Jie. Aside from Su Jie, there were also dozens of prisoners detained here. They were all war prisoners from Japan, specifically selected by name and transferred here by Su Jie's orders. Hearing the movement, the restless war prisoners looked over with hostile glares, and then they saw the figure of Su Jie. Su Jie made no attempt to hide, so all the prisoners recognized him as the sole person in control of the JECA Group. In a flash, a variety of sounds filled the air: curses, pleas for mercy, weeping. In front of Su Jie, the prisoners displayed a myriad of postures. 32 test subjects, that should be enough. As Su Jie stroked his chin, he paid no attention to the turmoil around him. The clamor of those facing death did not concern him. No sooner had he spoken than a flash of light emanated from the storage bag at his waist, and large containment vessels appeared before him, piling up like a small mountain. Within these containers was nothing but brilliant red blood, the first batch of blood to be transported here since the inauguration of the blood donation policy, an amount calculated in tons. Human blood and water weigh roughly the same, and estimating 400 milliliters of blood drawn per person, the combined donations from 2,500 people would be about 1 ton. The blood Su Jie had on hand weighed over 2,000 tons, which meant it was the blood of 5 million donations. This vast quantity of blood, if placed in the Tianyuan world's blood demon cave, would make those demon cultivators cultivating the blood sea devouring sky demon technique green with envy. To obtain this much blood, aside from extracting it slowly over time from the blood slaves within their territory, they would have to engage in mass killing in the outside world, slaughtering 500,000 people to obtain an amount of blood equivalent to what Su Jie had here. Compared to the blood demon cave, Su Jie's resources were far richer. The blood extracted from the blood slaves in the blood demon cave had to supply the needs of the entire sect, while Su Jie only needed to satisfy himself. The imprisoned Japanese war prisoners watched this miraculous scene of suddenly appearing blood and the pungent odor that changed their complexion, revealing to them Su Jie's secret. However, they were doomed to have no risk of leaking any secrets, because Su Jie had already extended his left palm. Bang! A Japanese war prisoner uncontrollably flew towards Su Jie, who then pressed his left hand on the top of the prisoner's skull. Blood sea surges, blood spring flows, refine completely. A cold curve appeared on Su Jie's lips as he operated the blood sea devouring sky demon technique. The eyes of the Japanese war prisoner bulged, turning blood red with severe congestion. Then, with a pop, his eye sockets ruptured, with twin jets of blood spurting out. Not just the eyes, but blood also surged out of all 7 orifices of the Japanese war prisoner's body. His body resembled a dried, broken sack, as all the blood was extracted, leaving behind a mummified husk. This horrific scene made all other present Japanese war prisoners tremble, completely shattering their composure. A devil! This is a devil! Amaterasu above! Save your people! I don't want to die. I want to go home. Let me go home! Screams of terror echoed throughout the area, but Su Jie was completely indifferent, moving his left hand away as the corpse of the Japanese war prisoner he held collapsed. Su Jie observed the blood that had been drawn into the air and formed a spell. Absorb! The blood immediately boiled, like water coming to a boil, and misty, blood-colored vapor rose into the air. Su Jie stood in the midst of it, as this bloody vapor turned into essence strands, which he refined with the blood sea devouring sky demon technique. Although Su Jie had only recently started practicing this demon technique, his fourth-level cultivation in the secret realm allowed him to progress swiftly, and the blood was quickly refined by him. Feeling the slightly increased amount of holy blood inside him, he noted that the effect of the ordinary people's blood was far inferior to his own. Let's see about this batch over here. Su Jie lifted his hand, and a clump of blood floated out of one of the containers. Not too much or too little, precisely the blood volume of the Japanese war prisoner from before. Repeating the cultivation steps, Su Jie refined the blood again using the blood sea devouring sky demon technique. There's some loss, but it's within an acceptable range. However, it's much less effective than the blood of people from the Tianyuan world, perhaps due to the lack of spiritual energy, he mused. The blood from these public donations had been preserved through a strict procedure, meticulously handled at every stage, and transported to Su Jie as fast as possible using cold chain logistics, consistently kept within the specified temperature range to maintain the biological activity of the blood, ensuring it didn't spoil. However, even so, Su Jie discovered through the comparison of blood absorption that these cold chain stored blood samples had lost 30% of their potency compared with freshly refined human blood. This was not due to a problem with the storage process but to the natural loss of blood essence within the blood, an unavoidable occurrence. Moreover, Su Jie noticed that compared to the blood of the Tianyuan world, the blood from Blue Star was far inferior. Su Jie conjectured that this was because humans in the Tianyuan world had been living in an environment filled with spiritual power from birth, which made their blood subtly different from that of Blue Star. To verify his guess, Su Jie also used other prisoners of war from Japan for a series of tests on the blood sea devouring sky demon skill. Only after all the tests were completed and Su Jie had confirmed his conjectures did he finally begin formal cultivation. Rise! With a flick of his fingers, Su Jie summoned a roaring tornado out of thin air in the underground training room, turning it into swirling vortexes. The blood stored in the containers, under the force of the wind, was drawn out in a procession, staining the tornado red, like dragons sucking up water, causing a blood-red storm. In a moment, the spectacle was grand, with 2,000 tons of blood spread across the air. Any ordinary human entering this place would have been scared stiff. Refine! Su Jie rapidly deployed spells with his hands, and to better absorb the blood, he also took out the 9-grade Sacred Lotus, which provided him with the spiritual power needed to practice the blood sea devouring sky demon skill. Blood tornadoes merged with each other, forming a massive blood tornado, the blood thickening into a deep red color, the pungent, iron scent of blood overwhelming the senses. Su Jie stood at the eye of the blood tornado while the blood sea devouring sky demon skill operated, his lips moving slightly as he chanted a low demonic sound, making the air around him seem to ignite, the distorted heat wave suffocating. Runes appeared out of the void, boiling the blood. A thick, blood-colored mist enveloped the entire underground practice area, reaching a state of total obscurity. On the surface of Su Jie's body, his muscles and veins bulged. His blood vessels twisted like serpents, sometimes tensing, sometimes swelling as if invisible creatures were moving through them. The blood sea devouring sky demon skill was convenient to practice. It wasn't about being a vampire. There was no need for Su Jie to drink the blood, which was impractical given the sheer volume of it. Su Jie was merely absorbing a unique blood melody from the blood and transforming it. An immense amount of blood was continuously refined and then transformed into Su Jie's own holy blood. Holy blood was the key to practicing the blood sea devouring sky demon skill, which involved replacing one's own blood with holy blood. Initially, Su Jie had only a dozen or so drops of holy blood in his body, which were condensed from refining his own blood. That amount was far from the 5th level of the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill, where all the blood in the body becomes holy blood. The human body holds about 4 to 5,000 milliliters of blood, with 1 milliliter amounting to 20 to 25 drops, meaning the human body contains at least 100,000 drops. But as tons upon tons of fresh blood were refined and absorbed by Su Jie using the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill, everything changed. Within the bone marrow, droplets of shining golden red holy blood condensed. And although the blood of these ordinary people was not as high quality as Su Jie's own blood, the sheer volume was overwhelming. A quantitative change caused a qualitative change, and Su Jie's cultivation of the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill sped up dramatically. 100 drops, 500 drops, 2,000 drops. More and more holy blood condensed within, and the level of Su Jie's Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill continued to break through. First level. Second level. In the blink of an eye, Su Jie advanced 2 whole levels in the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill, moving beyond the initial stages. And yet, it was not over. As Su Jie continued to absorb the blood, in this refining process, Su Jie's body also underwent transformations. Enshrouded in the blood mist, the twisted veins on Su Jie's body appeared especially eerie. Crack, crack. His body was as if torn by some indescribable force and restructured, becoming deformed and terrifying. One by one, white and ghastly bones pierced through the skin. Hands and feet became grotesque and bizarre. Limbs folded randomly like cloth. Joints displaced, muscles and skin stretched tight over the complex skeleton, as if they would burst open at any moment from the seams. Hair seemed possessed with its own consciousness, wildly thrashing in the void, slashing the ground around it full of holes. Blood, the essence of the human body, when condensed into holy blood, would continuously strengthen the body's constitution. Therefore, the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill is also a body-refining technique. In the process of condensing holy blood, it was also gradually transforming the body. However, the process appeared somewhat terrifying and bizarre. Su Jie would occasionally let out low growls and roars of pain, blowing the bloody mist into the air, making the scene particularly disturbing. Time quietly slipped away, and one day passed in the blink of an eye. On the underground cultivation field, the blood mist had thinned considerably, no longer a dense fog that obscured vision. Only faint traces of blood occasionally emerged and then vanished without a trace. Whoosh! Suddenly, the blood fog began to ripple as if some mysterious power was awakening. The bloody mist churned violently, bubbles of blood rising and bursting, then rising again, forming waves of red, surging in waves. Open! A cold voice spread, and the surrounding blood fog formed several funnel-shaped vortices. A difficult-to-describe aura began to permeate, heavy and oppressive, making the air around it become weighty. The blood fog grew thinner, and at its center, a blurry figure slowly emerged. At this moment, Su Jie was in tatters, revealing a body akin to a master sculptor's perfect work. On the skin, the patterns of the blood talismans faded. Su Jie took out a new set of clothes from the storage bag and changed out of the clothes torn apart during the body strengthening process. Following that, Su Jie looked down at his palm, where the skin of the palm had split open, and drops of pale golden holy blood rolled down. Bang! The holy blood fell to the ground, instantly swelling and transforming, and the ground seemed to be suddenly gnawed away by a huge chunk, as a massive blood-red tentacle thundered down, shaking the entire cultivation field. Bang! 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 The more holy blood that dropped, the more it twisted and condensed into various bizarre entities, as if they had a life of their own. Some transformed into tall, strange figures, wandering through the blood mist. Others became 9-headed, 6-tailed monsters, 30 feet in size, leaving behind a trail of sticky traces, which then condensed into smaller, ferocious blood-like creatures, wildly jumping and wriggling. Even more holy blood became various deformed and terrifying entities, lacking the symmetry and coordination of natural creatures. With multiple limbs, tentacles, slime, and vertical pupils. With the appearance of these beings, the air filled with the scent of decay and foulness, as if emanating evil thoughts from the deepest abyss. No wonder it's called demon blood by the righteous sections. Su Jie murmured to himself. As a demon cultivation method, this was also one of the side effects. These were the heart demons and evil thoughts naturally produced during the cultivation of the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill, also known as blood demons, which made it easy to fall into demonic cultivation if one was not careful. However, with a thought from Su Jie, his primordial spirit shone with the brilliance of the God unification level, sweeping away all filth and evil thoughts. All the blood shed its instincts, freely controlled by Su Jie, turning into various flying swords, treasures, and even transforming giants. Of course, this form was only superficial. The attack was still a pure physical form. The extremely high level of the primordial spirit meant that Su Jie was not afraid of heart demons. Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill, 3rd level, it truly lives up to a demon cultivation method. The progression is fast. Su Jie smiled at the corner of his mouth. The Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill had 12 levels, and Su Jie's skill had already reached the 3rd level. This was the demon path, where the speed of cultivation was unmatched by the righteous sex. For the righteous sex, no cultivation technique would allow a person to rise 3 levels overnight. Only the demon path could achieve that. Su Jie looked at his palm again, took out the white-bone sky-slaying sword that he hadn't used for a long time. This top-grade magical artifact, when swung at Su Jie's arm, only left a faint blood mark which healed and recovered in the next second. The fresh blood of 5 million people allowed Su Jie's Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill to soar directly to the 3rd level and greatly strengthened his body. Already having the purple cloud thunder body, he had now ascended a level further, making it difficult for magical artifacts to injure his flesh. This is just the beginning. After absorbing all the fresh blood of Southeast Asia, my Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill will probably soar to the 5th or 6th level. Su Jie could already foresee the future. When the blood of the entire Southeast Asia converged into his body, he would certainly break through to the 5th level of the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill, replacing all the blood in his body with holy blood, which would also allow him to use the great divine skill of body transformation Blood Sea. That would be the time when the true might of the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill would be displayed. As the blood donation policy gradually spread across Southeast Asia, thousands of tons of fresh blood arrived daily, serving as nourishment for Su Jie's Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill. With a population of 250 million in Southeast Asia, the resources available for Su Jie were abundant. Although the blood donation led to spending money like water, what Su Jie exchanged for it was rapid progress in the Blood Sea Devouring Sky Demon skill. Inside his body, the holy blood had already broken through to more than 10,000 drops. However, one day, Su Jie, who had been absent from the underground cultivation field for a long time, took the time to visit the southern part of Chan country, a coastal wasteland. Originally just a wasteland, a huge base now sat on the site. At the entrance of the base, 7 gilded characters hung, Red Sun Rocket Launch Site. Indeed, this was a rocket launch site, built by the JECA Group with a hefty investment, intended as the rocket center for future space launch missions. This rocket launch base covered an area of 35,331 acres with a coastline of 8.8 kilometers. It was originally a barren beach with saline soil. The nearest population center and major traffic artery were about 200 kilometers away, making it a relatively safe location. Also, due to its proximity to the equator and low latitude, it was the best geographical location for satellite launches. Launching satellites in the equatorial region allowed the rocket to fully utilize Blue Star's rotation, saving on the rocket's thrust and making it easier to deliver payloads into orbit. Therefore, it was selected as the rocket launch site. Su Jie arrived here by car. From afar, through the car window, he could see the supporting facilities inside the Red Sun rocket launch site, such as the telemetry station, technical area, test collaboration area, technical service area, and main rocket assembly building. The car traveled along, and the workers they encountered along the way were mostly in a hurry because today was the day the first rocket was assembled off the line. The car stopped in front of a building. This was the rocket's back-end monitoring room, where various monitoring and data during rocket launches were collected and implemented. During the rocket launch, even the countdown button was pressed here. Mr.
Su, Ms. Liu.
Upon entering, a middle-aged man wearing glasses and looking energetic approached them with a group of engineers. He was indeed the chief designer of the Kunping series rockets, named Pang Liangji. Originally a Hua country native, his grandfather had emigrated to Beautiful Country during the years of war. Previously, he worked at an aerospace technology company in Beautiful Country and was later headhunted by JECA Group. Mainly because JECA Group promised to allow him to lead a team and design and build his own rockets. In Beautiful Country, although his abilities were widely recognized, his Chinese identity always made it impossible for him to rise to a high position. Once JECA Company contacted him, Pang Liangji did not hesitate much and agreed, changing his nationality to Chan Country and having his family relocated here, freeing him from worries about his personal life. Master Pang, it's been a while. How have you been lately? Su Jie shook hands with Pang Liangji, his face displaying a congenial smile. Mr. Su, you flatter me. Just call me Mr. Pang. I dare not claim any superior title in your presence. You are the true master. And don't worry about me, Mr. Su. I am quite satisfied with life here. So much so that I regret not having joined JECA Company a day sooner. Pang Liangji waved his hands continuously. Initially joining JECA Group, he somewhat had the mentality of technological philanthropy. Though JECA Group was wealthy, rocket technology belongs to high-tech and cannot simply be achieved by throwing money at it. Only about 20 countries worldwide have launched several thousand satellites, and among them only Beautiful Country, Maubert Country, Hua Country, France, India, Great Britain, and Japan have accomplished launches entirely on their own. Prior to this, the countries in Southeast Asia were not only unrelated to such cutting-edge technology as rockets, they were completely unrelated. However, once Pang Liangji arrived at the newly established Space Department of JECA Group, especially after seeing Su Jie and various magical materials, his attitude changed dramatically. Su Jie always had various bold and innovative rocket designs, and those high-performance, unheard-of materials also enabled Pang Liangji to unleash his creativity in innovative design. Moreover, in terms of funding, JECA Group was extremely generous and did not have any so-called layman leaders interfering. Pang Liangji felt that joining JECA Group truly allowed his dreams to be realized, and he was extremely satisfied with his current life. That's great to hear. We at JECA Group are now desperately in need of talents. If there's anything unsatisfactory, please speak up. Su Jie reassured him, then asked, how is the installation of the first Kunping rocket going now? I hope there were no mishaps. All steps have been completed well, thanks to those genetic warriors and spider mechas you dispatched. Otherwise, installing such a huge rocket would not have been easy. Let's go see it now. This Kunping rocket represents the hard work of many, and I have yet to see its true face. After exchanging pleasantries, Su Jie and Pang Liangji, along with others, arrived at the launch site area. Upon entering the launch site, an enormous towering object suddenly appeared before everyone. Below the launch pad, a huge rocket stood upright, measuring at least 150 meters in height, similar to a giant ship being erected. The engineers present had seen it more than once, and Su Jie was prepared mentally. Only Ying, seeing this rocket for the first time, involuntarily let out a somewhat inappropriate exclamation. This rocket is so huge. Since Su Jie was in charge of the rocket project, Lu Ying had originally thought the rocket was just 50 or 60 meters high, the standard height for mainstream rockets nowadays. But what she saw now was much taller and bigger. The Kunping rocket, 185 meters in total length, 15 meters in diameter, is mainly made of stainless steel and equipped with the newly developed Sky Pong engines, totaling 44 units. When fully stacked and fueled, the Kunping rocket weighs 11,380 tons. According to design specifications, the Kunping rocket is capable of transporting a payload of 850 tons to Blue Star's near-Earth orbit and 250 tons to the geostationary transfer orbit. Mr. Pang pushed his glasses up, and though he tried to remain calm, The slight upward curl of his lips revealed his excitement. Because once the Kunping rocket was revealed, it was certain to astonish the world. Listening to Mr. Pang's introduction, Lu Yingying's eyes widened as she looked up at the towering Kunping rocket and said in disbelief, "Isn't this even more powerful than the Saturn V? Compared with Saturn V, the largest rocket ever created by humanity, which stood at around 110 meters tall and weighed nearly 3,000 tons, it made all existing rockets pale in comparison." The Saturn V was a result of intense national competition during the Cold War between Beautiful Country and Maubert, and its 140-ton near-Earth payload capacity remains unmatched by modern rockets. But compared to the Kunping rocket, even the Saturn V seemed inferior. The weight of the Kunping rocket alone was 4 times that of the Saturn V, and its payload capacity far exceeded the latter, not to mention when compared to today's mainstream rockets. Even Falcon 9, today's most successful rocket, with its mere 70 meters in length, 549 tons of launch weight, and 22.8-ton payload capacity for near-Earth orbit, seemed like a tiny sprout before the Kunping rocket. Yes, our designed Kunping rocket on paper far surpasses the Saturn V, and it also stands as the largest rocket ever built by humanity so far. However, all these claims hinge on the successful launch of the Kunping rocket. Otherwise, we cannot yet say we have surpassed the Saturn V. Mr. Pang nodded, feeling proud inside for designing and building the largest rocket in human history. He also felt nervous and worried, for if the rocket failed to launch, he would face ridicule and skepticism from around the world. Moreover, he did not want to let down Su Jie's trust and expectations. JECA Company had provided him with excellent treatment and an environment where funding and resources were never lacking. If the rocket launch failed, he felt he would be too ashamed to face Su Jie. Not to mention, the Kunping rocket alone cost over $1.5 billion, not counting the special materials used during its construction. Those materials, all provided by Su Jie without a price tag, would undoubtedly cost a staggering amount given their extraordinary performance. Given such a high-value toy potentially going up in smoke, Mr. Pang naturally felt immense psychological pressure. These days, he could hardly enjoy meals or sleep well, consumed by thoughts of the Kunping rocket, conducting danger checks over and over again, just worried about any potential faults that could cause the launch to fail. Mr. Pang, you need to have more faith in yourself and the Kunping rocket's design and construction team. This rocket will definitely succeed in launching. Su Jie patted Mr. Pang's shoulder, apparently having more confidence than Mr. Pang, the chief designer who oversaw the Kunping rocket. The reason being that a variant model of the Kunping rocket had already successfully launched in Tianyuan World. Although it was destroyed in Triple Heaven, swapped into Blue Star space environment, it was more than adequate. So, is the launch date set? Suddenly remembering something, Su Jie asked. Mr. Pang immediately responded, "I was just about to report to you, Mr. Su. We plan to conduct the first flight test of the Kunping rocket on the 15th of this month. All the rocket tracking stations along the route are already built, and after strict calculations, the weather on that day is guaranteed to be clear for launch. Then let's set it for the 15th. Su Jie nodded slightly, then instructed Lu Yingying. Yingying, make sure the preparations for publicity are in place. Let's send out the news of our Kunping rocket launch and invite all the major media for a live broadcast. We want our Kunping rocket to ascend into the skies with the whole world watching. All right, I'll get right on it and make sure everyone knows about the Kunping rocket launch." Lu Yingying responded promptly and turned to tell the public relations department to work overtime and create a major scoop. "Mr. Su, maybe we shouldn't invite the media just yet, in case the first flight fails." When Mr. Pang heard Su Jie's words, he felt immense pressure, broadcasting the rocket launch live in front of millions. If it succeeded, all would celebrate, but if it failed, it would be an embarrassment on an international scale. There are no what-ifs. I have confidence in you all, and that settles it. After leaving Red Sun Rocket Launch Center, in the villa in Monday City, Lu Yingying sat on the sofa in the living room, holding a tablet, laughing uncontrollably. "What's going on?" Su Jie just came out after a shower and saw Lu Yingying laughing uncontrollably. "Look at this, Boston Dynamics just released a video introducing their latest developed combat mecha, claiming it will surpass the JECA Group. Lu Yingying handed the tablet to Su Jie, her smile unwavering. Su Jie took the tablet and saw a video of a mecha, about 2.5 meters tall and resembling a scaled-down version of a biological armor, being worn and operated by humans to perform various movements. Climbing walls, jumping, ascending stairs, crouching, and even handling a machine gun to perform suppressive fire, it also demonstrated its defensive capabilities, as ordinary rifle bullets couldn't completely penetrate the mecha. Although its speed and agility were nothing to write home about, significantly inferior to even an average person's, the fact that it could withstand rifle bullets gave it a certain degree of practical combat effectiveness. Unsurprisingly, the video was released by Boston Dynamics Company to showcase their research achievements and incidentally, to continue nagging the Black Palace for more development funds, commonly known as cash grab. But the interesting part came when Lu Yingying immediately swiped to show Su Jie a second video. The second video also featured the mecha developed by Boston Dynamics Company, apparently secretly filmed by one of the researchers. This time, the video was more comprehensive, showing the mecha with a long cable attached to its behind, trailing like an intestine, the other end connected to a truck carrying a heavy generator set. Wherever the mecha went, the generator truck would follow like a nanny. It was patently obvious that the mecha could move only with external power supply. Not just that, in the footage that the official Boston Dynamics Company video didn't include, the mecha revealed all sorts of problems during the latter half of the tests. Leaking oil, parts exploding, becoming paralyzed in place and unresponsive, etc. It's unclear whether the researcher who shot the video had a moment of conscience or if it was the crafty work of a military-industrial rival that didn't want Boston Company fingering the mecha research funds, but they've shaken out all of Boston Dynamics' dirty laundry. The video's comments section was filled with nothing but curses and all sorts of ridicule. Oh God! Has the nerve to compare this to JECA Group's biological armor? Can't even walk faster than my grandma, and it's fully reliant on an external power supply. It's utter trash. No, but how dare Boston Dynamics even think to match wits with JECA Group with this kind of garbage? Can this streak of problems even make it to the battlefield? Or do they plan on equipping each mecha with its own nanny truck? If that's the case, you might as well just deploy armored vehicles. They've got far better bullet resistance and mobility than this trash mecha. Crap. I've been bragging to my friends, saying that mecha development was a success and that we'll soon be sanctioning JECA Group. I promised my friends a feast to celebrate. And now you give me this? Better for a scam company like yours to go out of business sooner. Among these comments, the most furious were from the citizens of the beautiful country. The mecha they had been longing for and on which they had spent so much taxpayer money turned out to be such a failure. To make matters worse, there was fraud involved. You can imagine their anger. After watching the video, Su Jie chuckled twice and said, "This beautiful country really doesn't give up. Huh? I heard they've already spent over $200 billion on mecha research." Exactly. It looks like all that funding has just lined the pockets of those military-industrial giants. Lu Yingying spoke gleefully, hoping that the beautiful country would continue sinking money into the endeavor. It wasn't that the beautiful country's technology was weak, but the main challenges of mecha were too great. For example, as seen in the video, one of the main reasons limiting the development of powerful mecha was the inadequate batteries driving them. Owing to the underdeveloped battery technology and low energy density, if a battery were to power a mecha, it would weigh tremendously. The mecha's additional carrying capacity and armor would be negated by the weight of its own battery, rendering it meaningless. This is the consequence of being too aggressive. The beautiful country is too eager to catch up with us. Su Jie shook his head. JECA Group's mecha was like a game-changer from Tianyuan World, taking a route that combined machinery with biology. The beautiful country, relying on sheer technological power alone, wasn't going to make it, not without a scientific breakthrough or an Einstein-level researcher to overcome all mecha challenges to create a practical mecha. By that time, JECA Group's mecha would have undergone countless iterations and wouldn't fear any competition. We're building rockets now. There won't be any issues with this Kunping rocket, right? On hearing Su Jie's words, Lu Yingying thought of the Kunping rocket. For JECA Group, starting straight off with such a large rocket was also an aggressive move, a step too big. Su Jie pinched Lu Yingying's cheek and laughed. What, no faith in me? Not at all, it's just such a big rocket. Nobody's ever made one fly before. The reason there hasn't been such a big rocket before is that JECA Group wasn't in the rocket field. Now that we at JECA Group have entered, everything naturally changes. Tell me, are the firsts we've achieved at JECA Group ever few? Breakthroughs in various fields, for instance, our mecha have always been imitated but never surpassed. Su Jie wrapped his arms around Lu Yingying's slim waist and his hands began to wander mischievously. Lu Yingying's cheeks flushed as she felt the antics of Su Jie's roving hand. However, what Su Jie said was indeed true. Not just the beautiful country, but many nations had heavily invested in mecha research, eager to catch up in this latest military sector innovation. The superior performance of mecha had been verified through actual combat by JECA Group, whether it was the biological armor worn by Genetic Warriors, the Spider main battle mecha, or the derivative models based on the Spider mecha chassis. They were all being eagerly studied and imitated by nations worldwide. In military technology, there's no such thing as copyright complaints about copying and imitation. If you can replicate it, that's considered skillful mastery, and nobody would take it to court. Even so, despite being globally imitated and studied for so long, there's still no force that can produce a practical mecha. The best attempts so far are some individual exoskeletons, which can assist soldiers by reducing the stress on their lower limbs and allowing them to carry more equipment for longer distances. But this is far from being related to mecha. It's not even dark yet. Before Lu Yingying could grasp the issue thoroughly, Su Jie had already mounted his horse. The worries naturally dissipated, turning into soft moans and breaths. Breaking news late at night. Just now, the JECA Group announced their venture into space exploration and will conduct the maiden flight of the Kunping rocket on October 15th this month. A 185-meter-tall rocket. A small frame supporting a big rocket. Such arrogant progress, JECA Group Space Dream is doomed to end in tragedy. The most powerful rocket in human history? Nothing but a self-aggrandizing clown. On October 5th, late at night, many netizens surfing online were attracted by breaking news. Because the JECA Group official released a video, in the video was an ultra-huge rocket standing as tall as a peak. The Kunping rocket just like that entered the International Space Stage without any external preparation, leading to extensive media coverage and chasing the hot topic. Such a huge rocket is really eye-catching. Rockets represent the forefront of human technology in exploring the vastness of space. They are the pursuit of the stars and the seas, truly a toy for great nations. Not to mention the small and poor countries, even the great nations have to be cautious with rocket construction. The once great Red Bear Empire during the Cold War space race consumed tremendous economic resources and national power, ultimately leading to the collapse and disintegration of the Red Bear Empire, not unrelated to that intense space race. The JECA Group suddenly says they want to go to space, launch a rocket, especially the largest in human history. The fervor is imaginable. Even if it is late at night, but on major global social media platforms like Twitter, TikTok, Zhihu, Facebook, people are passionately commenting and discussing below the posts. Fate, this isn't fake news, right? When did the JECA Group get into the space business? Just because their mechas are fierce doesn't mean they're good at making rockets. 185 meters tall, tens of thousands of tons in launch weight. Is the JECA Group mad? Such a huge rocket is just too exaggerated. Even the largest destroyers now are only 10,000 tons. This rocket is like boosting a 10,000-ton destroyer into space, simply awesome. Excited poster above, wait a second. Bigger isn't always better in rockets. Haphazardly stacking resources. All you make is a big firework. I swear on God's name, this rocket will definitely explode mid-air and disintegrate. I'm telling you. The JECA Group, with no basis in rocketry, wants to make big news, coming up with such a vanity project. I admit, whether this rocket succeeds or not, even if it disintegrates in the air, in terms of attracting news traffic, the JECA Group has already succeeded. I'm from Hua Country, and have always admired the JECA Group and Su Jie. Although the JECA Group has created many miracles, I'm not optimistic about them this time. Blindly embarking on such a significant national endeavor instead of steadily and actual developing, it's too pompous and hollow. I'm afraid the JECA Group is in for a big fall. The JECA Group is strong in the field of biogenetics, but in the field of rockets and space, they're just a baby, thinking of flying before even crawling. It's laughable. Size isn't everything in rockets. So what if this Kunping rocket is bigger than Saturn V? Our country's Saturn V was launched 13 times with a 100% success rate, including 7 manned moon missions. The Kunping rocket explodes on its maiden flight, 0 success rate. With what can you compare to us? Almost all onlookers who saw the Kunping rocket were pessimistic about its maiden flight. All kinds of ridicule and mockery were heard non-stop. In the world's view, the JECA Group and rockets just don't mix. Plus, to try to create history by building the largest human rocket, making such a big fuss, will definitely make people think it's just showing off. Rocket launch failures are not scary, they happen often, but the JECA Group's extensive publicity, inviting major news media over for the live broadcast, hyping up the strongest rocket in human history, once it fails, the criticism it will face is imaginable. Not just outsiders, but many within the JECA Group as well were anxious, worried that a rocket launch failure would turn into an international joke. In the following days, news related to the JECA Group's Kunping rocket continued to ferment. Globally, the news about the Kunping rocket was hotly discussed, not only by the onlookers but also by experts from various countries, and even official sources didn't miss the chance to mock the beautiful country. If such a large rocket explodes and disintegrates in space, how much space debris will it produce? The actions of the JECA Group pose a threat to the global satellite system, endangering the space development of all humanity. Japan. I'm more worried about this rocket losing control and crashing into the blue star. If it falls in another country's territory, with tens of thousands of tons crashing down, the consequences would be very serious, threatening the safety of all countries around the world. The JECA Group is stubborn and will only harm themselves and others in the end. South Korea. The JECA Group often touts its strength. As expected from a great country, wealthy and domineering, their fireworks are on a different scale from ours. Let's all enjoy the most expensive fireworks show in history, costing several $100 million, under the guise of space development on the 15th. Great Britain. Residents near the launch site should move quickly, otherwise, you'll be living as if in a war zone. India. Doesn't everyone know that JECA Group's aerospace science is far inferior to ours? India? If they want to catch up with us, the JECA Group needs to practice for a few dozen more years. Canada. When it comes to space rockets, the whole world cheers for whichever country achieves it. But JECA Group's rocket is doomed to be nothing more than a grand fireworks display. Haha. Beautiful country. At CIA headquarters, Director Judith flipped through the intelligence report in her hands, relating to the Kunping rocket. Among the photos, some captured via satellite at the Red Sun rocket launch site, the towering Kunping rocket stood magnificently. Raising her head, Judith looked at the blond, middle-aged man sitting across from her. The man was the director of NASA, Burton Baggy. So-called NASA, that is, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of Beautiful Country, is the most authoritative aerospace research institution in the world. The renowned Apollo moon landing, Saturn V rocket, International Space Station, Hubble Space Telescope, Voyager spacecraft, and so forth, all were completed under the control and leadership of NASA, achieving extremely brilliant successes. Burton, state your business? Judith prompted. I don't think you came here just to have coffee with me. Judith set down the intelligence report and asked Burton about his purpose. The CIA, Beautiful Country's intelligence agency, seldom interacted with NASA. They barely had anything to do with each other on a day-to-day basis. Director Judith, after reviewing the materials on the Kunping rocket, what are your thoughts? Burton smiled, pointing to one of the photos, a panoramic view of the Kunping rocket. Engineers stood below the rocket, looking as tiny as ants by comparison, creating a stunning impact. The JECA Group's sudden construction of a rocket might have a chance of success, although from a realistic standpoint, it seems quite unreasonable. Judith spoke calmly, expressing a view that differed from most others. As an old rival of the JECA Group, Judith had witnessed firsthand how JECA Group developed step by step. Initially just a local warlord based in Chan country, the JECA Group had become the hegemon of Southeast Asia in just a few short years, creating many miracles. Many of the things Jekka Group did, even seen as far-fetched now, were somehow always successful in the end. Hearing this answer, Burton was slightly taken aback, obviously not expecting Judith to say such a thing. Then Burton shook his head and chuckled wryly. My view differs from yours. If building rockets were so easy, there wouldn't be so few countries in the world that can independently design and manufacture rockets. This so-called Kunping rocket is nothing more than a haphazardly assembled product by Jekka Group. I seriously doubt it could even fly. Internally sneering at Judith's fanciful statement, Burton looked down on her as an outsider. She had no idea about the difficulty of manufacturing rockets. For Jekka's ragtag assembly, aiming to build the strongest rocket for mankind was even more ludicrous than NASA relocating to Mars to build a city tomorrow. So you came to me basically to complain? Forgive me, but I don't have that much spare time. Judith gestured dismissively, ready to send him away. Wait a minute. Seeing he had angered Judith, Burton quickly offered an apologetic smile. Director Judith, after all, we both work for Beautiful Country. And I really do have an important matter to discuss with you. Speak. Judith sat back down, staring icily at him, her sharp eagle-like eyes making Burton somewhat uncomfortable. Judith's background as a special agent left Burton feeling very insecure in front of her, as if he were a criminal under scrutiny. It's like this. We need your help, Director Judith. We at NASA need to provide a detailed report on the Kunping rocket, demonstrating the threat and competition that Jekka Group poses in space, to alert the authorities at the Black Palace. We must take this competitor seriously. Burton cleared his throat and suddenly switched tones, speaking earnestly. Judith glanced at him, saying, A moment ago you said Jekka Group's rocket was mere fancy, and now you switched to saying Jekka Group is a space threat? If I don't talk like that, how will those big shots in Congress give us money? Director Judith, we at NASA are having a tough time. We can barely pay our staff salaries. And if we don't get some funding soon, everyone will have to disband. Burton looked utterly dejected, voicing his constant grievances. During the Cold War with the Red Bear in the previous century, it was NASA's golden age. The race for space dominance between the two countries, competing to send astronauts into space. With the Red Bear's collapse, Beautiful Country became the ultimate winner. But as the saying goes, what rises must fall. Without Red Bear as a competitor, Beautiful Country's achievements in space declined, with space technology even beginning to regress. Space program budgets were repeatedly cut, resulting in staff layoffs or project cancellations. It's said that transitioning from modesty to luxury is easy, but going from luxury to austerity is difficult. Accustomed to lavish spending, today's NASA budget allocations leave Burton and the other space employees quite unsatisfied. Now, with the emergence of news about Jekka Group's construction of the Kunping rocket, Burton immediately sensed an opportunity and the smell of money. Whether Jekka's rocket is worth anything isn't the point. What matters is convincing the old men in Congress that Jekka Group is entering the space race with Beautiful Country. With a formidable opponent, the congressional powers will be more willing to allocate generous funding, allowing everyone to return to better days. Ah, you're short on budget? Even now, compared to other national space agencies, yours still gets the most funding every year, Judith said coldly, scoffing. This was a typical ploy used by Beautiful Country's agencies, with going to Congress and claiming a shortage of funds always being their first step. NASA had not made any significant achievements in aerospace technology in recent years, and the excuse they provided to the public was a lack of budget, a lack of money. In reality, NASA's budget was still the highest in the world, almost $30 billion. NASA received so much money yet constantly claimed to be impoverished, mainly because the funds were not being spent effectively, and a great deal of it was siphoned off by people within the organization. We at NASA have so many assets and such a large enterprise that even a lot of money doesn't go very far. In order to maintain our Beautiful Country's space hegemony, NASA has made great sacrifices, and Director Judith seems to misunderstand us. Burton shook his head and gesticulated, pointing first at himself and then at Judith, before saying, Director Judith, we actually share the same goal. You think Jekka Group's Kunping rocket might succeed, right? then you should definitely join us in voicing our concerns to the Black Palace Congress. After all, a cargo rocket can be modified into an intercontinental missile with just a few changes. Given the JECA Group's hostility toward our beautiful country, if they have intercontinental missiles, how could the gentlemen in Congress sleep peacefully at night? Upon hearing Burton's words, Judith's eyes narrowed in concentration as she pondered. A missile consists of two main parts: a warhead for the combat section and a carrier. At the inception of rocket development, many rockets were launched using modified missiles. Cargo rockets and ballistic missiles ultimately share the same goal. Cargo rockets are designed to escape the Earth's gravity at high speed and aim to enter space orbit. Ballistic missiles also need to impart a high velocity to the payload so that it can reach its destination before losing gravitational potential energy and exhausting its fuel. Since their technologies and requirements are almost identical and highly similar in characteristics, a cargo rocket can be turned into a ballistic missile by replacing the compartment that holds the satellite with a combat warhead. This combat section can house explosives, nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, or a satellite when used as a cargo rocket. Of course, there are some differences between the two. After all, a ballistic missile eventually has to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, which demands high material quality and precision. But in general, the technological gap between the two is merely paper-thin. Anyone proficient in cargo rocket technology would not find it difficult to produce a ballistic missile. Judith now understood Burton's intention, which was to involve the CIA in amplifying the JECA Group threat narrative to secure more funds from Congress. "I agree to this," she said. With her brows unfurrowed, Judith thought for a few minutes and made her decision. Emphasizing the JECA Group's importance to the beautiful country would increase the CIA's influence. Advocating the JECA Group threat theory had always been Judith's stance. In her view, the JECA Group was already troublesome enough, and if they acquired ballistic missiles capable of striking the beautiful country's homeland directly, the threat posed by the JECA Group would increase significantly. Pleased to cooperate. A smile immediately appeared on Burton's face. He knew that Judith wouldn't refuse such an opportunity. "Tomorrow, let's meet with the president together, have a pre-talk with him, and then give a speech in Congress." Burton had already thought out the strategy. Once Congress heard that the JECA Group could produce ballistic missiles threatening the homeland, they would surely allocate funding without hesitation. The two discussed and decided to coordinate with each other the next day. Having achieved a satisfactory result, Burton took his leave at the appropriate time. But before leaving, Burton couldn't resist saying to Judith, as an aerospace professional, "I can assure you that the Kunping rocket made by JECA Group will not succeed. Aerospace is not gambling. There's no chance for overnight success and myth-making without a solid foundation. Without it, building rockets will end up a laughingstock." Watching Burton leave the office, Judith's mouth twitched as she muttered to herself, "Is he mocking me for being an outsider? But I too hope it's true. Otherwise, if JECA Group creates a cargo rocket and then develops ballistic missiles, we'll have big trouble." Considering JECA Group's powerful gene technology, if they ever developed large-scale lethal gene viruses or biochemical weapons and fitted them onto a ballistic missiles combat section, it would become a nightmarish reality. Just thinking about such an outcome made Judith shiver. She did not want to witness a biohazard crisis on the beautiful country's soil. The whole world was talking about JECA Group's Kunping rocket, but JECA Group itself was calmly proceeding with preparations for the maiden flight. At Red Sun rocket launch site, trucks and engineers were coming and going, and security levels had been heightened even further. The towering Kunping rocket stood tall on the launch pad as engineers painstakingly inspected every detail, performed individual tests on instruments and equipment, checked performance, and precisely measured parameters. They conducted a final inspection involving all systems on the rocket, simulated various flight conditions, and verified the technical performance and reliability of the entire rocket system, aiming to eliminate any safety risks as much as possible. Outside, various monitoring stations were also conducting joint tests. The ground service support departments were working overtime, and the weather support departments were monitoring weather data in real time using meteorological radars. As time ticked on, and it came to 2 days before the launch, a large crowd of tourists had already arrived, driving to the desolate area and setting up tents outside Red Sun rocket launch site. The launch by JECA Group was made public not only to the media but also to the public, offering free admission for spectators. Although there were doubts about whether the Kunping rocket could successfully launch, it was still billed as the strongest rocket in human history, and everyone wanted to witness the grand spectacle of a rocket weighing tens of thousands of tons ascending into the sky. Even if it exploded and disintegrated mid-air, it would be worth the journey. Finally, on October 15th, the sky was clear. Media vans entered the launch site, setting up their cameras for a live broadcast of the maiden flight of the rocket claimed to be the strongest in human history. The visitor area was packed with crowds holding binoculars and cell phones, and the atmosphere was lively. And the towering 185-meter-tall Kunping rocket, after completing its final check and adjustments, had engineers begin to load it with propellant, making the last preparations for liftoff. Inside the Red Sun rocket launch site, Ma Lin, a reporter from CBS of the beautiful country, was broadcasting live to the audience. Although a reporter from the beautiful country, she was not of European or American descent but had immigrated to the beautiful country from Hua country and had settled there for many years. Ladies and gentlemen, please look behind me. This is the Kunping rocket manufactured by JECA Group. According to data released by JECA Group, the Kunping rocket is 185 meters long and 15 meters in diameter, equipped with 44 Kongpeng engines, with a launch mass of 11,380 tons and a payload capacity of 850 tons for low Earth orbit, making it 4 times larger than Saturn V, which was once the largest rocket ever made by humanity. Facing the camera, Ma Lin had a charming smile on her face. After stating the data, the camera then focused on the Kunping rocket, which was positioned on the launch pad, poised for launch. However, that's what JECA Group claims. Whether this rocket can successfully launch still remains a question mark. Let's interview some of the visitors present to see what they think. Sir, hello? I'm a reporter from CBS. Do you think this Kunping rocket will launch successfully? With microphone in hand, Ma Lin approached the visiting tourists, asking each one in turn. If JECA Group was making mechas, I think they could pull it off, but rockets? I hate to say it, they just don't have the knack. It's tough. I feel like the rocket will disintegrate in mid-air. I'm here for the spectacle. Go JECA Group. Whether it explodes or succeeds, I'll get my fill of excitement. After interviewing several tourists, the consensus was generally pessimistic about the launch of the Kunping rocket. It seems nobody really believes in the Kunping rocket. As a newcomer, JECA Group has a long way to go if it wants to join the space party, she concluded. Ma Lin's bright eyes sparkled, and with a charming smile, she faced the camera and broadcast the live feedback to the beautiful country. Reporters and media personnel like Ma Lin numbered over 100 in the specially designated media area. Under the hype of the strongest rocket in human history, the audience watching this maiden flight live via television and social networks like the internet was conservatively estimated to exceed 300 million. Inside the rocket command center, Su Jie had come here again with Lu Yingying. Mr. Su, please press the launch button, Pang Liangji said, standing in front of Su Jie with visibly nervous expressions. Su Jie patted Pang Liangji on the shoulder and laughed. No need for such ceremony. You are the chief designer of this rocket. You should press it yourself. Taking a deep breath, Pang Liangji, filled with excitement and anxiety, walked up to the launch button. The nearby staff watched the electronic clock and continuously reported, 5 minutes preparation, 3 minutes preparation, 1 minute preparation. With the final minute arriving, all kinds of tracking and measuring equipment at the site were turned on, including high-speed cameras, tape recorders, and other recording devices. Launch 10 seconds, countdown, 10, 9. Everyone held their breath, their gazes fixed unblinkingly on the screen, their fists clenched tightly. 3, 2, 1, ignition. When the countdown reached 0 and Pang Liangji pressed the button, the rocket launch site was immediately filled with a continuous, tremendous roar like a mountain collapsing or a tsunami, shaking the ground. At the rocket's base, massive flames and thick smoke burst forth, with deafening noise and powerful shockwaves. Even the spectators and media outside could feel the ground vibrating. Amidst the screams of tens of thousands of spectators, the Kunpeng rocket, powered by the strong thrust of its fuel, shot up, propped by high-pressure gas producing a reactive force, soaring directly upward. In just over 10 seconds, the rocket accelerated to the speed of sound, its tail blazing with brilliant flames, the expelled gases condensing into smoke in the sky, forming a white vapor trail stretching across the sky, creating a spectacular cloud formation. It's flying. Holy shit. That's awesome. Amazing. Shit, it's really flying. I thought it would just explode on the spot. The spectators' mouths hung open as the immense size and weight of the Kunpeng rocket took off like a 10,000-ton destroyer right before their eyes. That stunningly beautiful scene made every spectator who witnessed it tremble with awe, able to genuinely feel the charm of human-engineered technology. It started with a few scattered claps, which soon turned into a continuous thunderous applause. Explode! 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 Of course, not everyone was pleased. Ma Lin, the CBS reporter, watched the launching Kunpeng rocket with eyes wide open, muttering under her breath, as if she wished she could smack it down with a slap. In Ma Lin's view, the beautiful country was the world's most powerful nation, with the strongest technological capabilities. For a force like JECA Group to surpass the beautiful country in the space domain was difficult for her to accept. Her patriotism for the beautiful country even surpassed that of many beautiful country people. But no matter how much she grumbled, the ascending Kunpeng rocket flew higher and more steadily until it pierced the clouds, eventually diminishing to a tiny speck and finally disappearing completely from view. The absence of an explosion and mid-air disintegration on the Kunpeng rocket greatly disappointed Ma Lin. With no other choice, Ma Lin had to suppress her frustration, walk up to the camera, and force a stiff smile. As we've seen, the Kunpeng rocket has successfully ascended and completed its liftoff stage. However, whether it can reach space and successfully deploy satellites still remains to be seen. Only if the satellite can truly begin its operations will the Kunpeng rocket be deemed a success.